Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the Canadian Roundtable. Fredrick, I think his mic is just not working at the moment, so we'll give him a few minutes to get ready here. But I'm here right now with Chris. How's it going, buddy? How's your day going?
My day's been good. It's been busy, but it's been
Yeah.
good. Fred's having a little bit of a senior moment right now, but he'll figure it out and
Yeah.
take his pills, and he'll be here shortly.
That's what you got to do. You got to contend with that when you're dealing with the certain age group of people. But as long as you got patience and understanding, it's not so bad, right? It's not a big deal. But no,
Exactly.
no,
He's
he's not.
he figures it out.
Yeah, no, nothing against old people or boomers, and he's not even close to a boomer anyways.
Not even close. No, that's true.
But hey guys, hey Bass Brat, how's it going? Hey the One, and hey the WoW Addict, Boingo Bear, T Nova, how's it going, guys? Thanks for joining us tonight. I didn't have too much really planned out. There's not like a lot of news right now going on, I guess, in Canada. I guess there's a little bit. There's with that Norman case that recently happened. What's your opinion on that, by the way? Have you been paying attention to that at all?
Actually, I'm glad you brought that one up first, because I saw you posted a video about it earlier. I didn't have a chance to watch it, but I was wondering if you could give me a little background on what's going on there with that guy, because I don't have all the details.
Well, I didn't really pay too much attention to it when it was actually going on, because it's almost like the Mueller investigation, where I was like, I'm just gonna wait until the results are in, right? And then I'm gonna kind of pay attention to it. But from what it looked like is that and there was like the Irving family was trying to get their company to go in and have a ship built by their company, but it was a different company that was having their ship built. And then there was some information that was leaked to the public. So then it made the Liberals look bad. So they had to kind of go back on what they were trying to do, because they were delaying the shipbuilding process for one company to probably try to get the Irving family in there. And now the prosecution has just delayed their charge and are staying the prosecution, right? They're not saying he's innocent, right, per se, but they're doing this because an election is coming up, and the defense has a lot of information that would look pretty bad for the Liberals. Like, I think there's a lot of connections that they could show between Scott Bryson, who is this Liberal MP, who is the head of the Treasury Department, who stepped down in 2019. But it's funny, now he's working for the BMO Bank. He's like the vice chair of the Bank of BMO now, but clearly doing insider trading and shit. But he had a lot of connections with that family, and I think if it would have went to trial, it would have been right during the election time, and they would have had to cross-examine likely Gerald Butts, a few Lamenti, whomever else in there, or not Lamenti, but some other people. And it would have exposed a lot of Liberals and their corruption. So that's why they stayed the prosecution right now. And it's like, they're saying, it's funny, they're saying Trudeau and like Lamenti didn't influence this prosecutor, right? They're like, because if they did, they would have had to release an article in the Canada Gazette saying that they influenced this prosecution, just like the law that was created in 2018 that the Trudeau's made for the SNC Lavalin case, right? So in order for them to even influence the case, but actually this would happen, this probably even happened before that law was even created, I think. Or actually, no. Actually, it just happened now. It just happened now, the prosecution, because like, you see them, they were going hardcore for this Norman guy, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, let's not go after you anymore. And so you're telling me that the prosecution just decided this independently of itself whatsoever, right? Or I guess maybe like a year down the road, or back in the day, maybe they made an agreement. And they're like, okay, if this gets too far, and it gets too close to the election, just stop prosecuting the guy, because it's going to expose us. Because they're trying to make this guy go broke. He has to pay $500,000 in legal fees because the government refused to cover his cost right? So now they're like, oh, you were already found guilty of leaking information, which he wasn't. But they're like, so we're not gonna we're not gonna cover your legal fees. So yeah, they're a bunch of scam artists. The RCMP was clearly being used by the Liberals as well to try to get this guy, and the prosecution. It's like they're all just working together to get conservatives essentially, right? But go ahead if you got anything you want to add there.
I mean, none of that really surprises me. I mean, this has all governments are dirty. All our large corporations are dirty too. This Liberal government, I mean, whenever a government talks about transparency, and in the case of Trudeau's sunny ways, whenever I heard that, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a greasy party. And they have certainly proven that. The more people learn about this government, the greasier and dirtier it gets. Just greasy, just super greasy. So I mean the nature of building a large organization can be very dirty to begin with, but then when you get people who are virtue signaling one thing versus another, very interesting. So nothing you're saying surprises me. It wouldn't surprise me if it was true. It wouldn't surprise me if it was false. It was just it's one of those things, crazy things here these days. Yeah,
right.
It's crazy. So things are so crazy, it could very well be true, or it could all be exactly as we see it. It's just things are so crazy you just don't even know these days.
Yeah, right. And it's not even crazy, right? It's just expected almost, right? Like I just expect our leaders to be corrupt and to use, because they're in a position of power in the government where they have control of a lot of resources that they can divvy out to different businesses and corporations that are willing to pay them a lot of money, right? Like this guy that just left, like I was saying, what's his name? Scott Bryson.
Yeah, Scott Bryson. Yeah.
He, as soon as he left the cabinet, he was the Treasury cabinet minister or something.
Yep.
Working as a vice chair of a bank. So clearly they know all of the information of the government. So they go and they sell that off to, different corporations that can now get a heads up on the competition. And yeah, it feels like we're living in like a third world fucking country with Trudeau, in the amount that he's clearly influencing, the independent the prosecution and all this other stuff, and the independent RCMP, but they're clearly his hounds, right?
Yeah,
it's fucked.
Yeah, it's like when China was if you look at what's going on with that Huawei CEO and how Canada's look, we can't. Trudeau says, I can't use my powers to influence the rule of law, in Canada, or our Justice Department is independent from our legislative branch. And I'm thinking, and if I'm China, I'm thinking, come on, what I know. There's ways that we can get this done, so let's just get this done. I'm not saying that should have happened. I'm just saying, the pandering and virtue signaling is a little ridiculous. These guys play their part. I'm sure there's several Quebec politicians that are mixed up in this whole thing as well. Bryson,
you just don't like Quebecers.
I know, no, Quebecers are great. I was just thinking about going to Montreal for the weekend one day.
Yeah, probably is.
Yeah.
Well, Irving is a company in New Brunswick. Is a big company in New Brunswick. So, whatever their background is, I have no idea. But it just shows you the need for a small government and stuff, because these people, they're just going to be paying off their friends. Trying to smear a good man's name who did nothing wrong.
Yep.
Or the sake of this Irving company who got pissed off, some information was leaked and now they can't get the government contract, as opposed to this other company, right? So it's a lot of crazy shit that's happening, and if you still support the Liberals after all that's happening as of late, it's like, what the fuck is the matter with you? Like, really?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the fuck is the matter with you, but they're the dirtiest bunch I've ever seen in my life.
It's incredible. I'm sharing an article here about that when Scott Bryson took the job. For some reason, I thought this happened this year. It just happened in February. Literally, like February, he stepped down as MP on February 10th because he had accepted a new job, I imagine, and he started it, on literally Valentine's Day, February 14th. So
Right.
Scott Bryson takes job with Bank of Montreal weeks, it was actually days after resigning from cabinet. And hired him as his vice chair of investment in corporate banking as a former Liberal cabinet minister. Prime responsibilities are client coverage and business development. He's moving to Toronto as a part of that as well. So bye-bye, my friends in Nova Scotia that he's represented for 22 years. Wow,
Well,
career politician.
This guy, he was a conservative, right? At one point. And
he was.
when the party was split,
Yep.
he was promoting it merged together or something. And as soon as it merged, then he left and joined the Liberals and went in like 2003. And since then, he's been a Liberal and completely switched. Well, I think he was mad that more of a, I guess he was probably like a red Tory, hardcore red Tory. So that's practically a Liberal. So he's like, oh, the Conservative Party is going too far right, maybe for him, or it barely even was. But, and it just shows you like how close the parties are as well. There was that one Liberal MP just recently that left and joined the Conservative Party. Like, to me, that isn't like a win. That's like a smear or a tarnish to the Conservative Party. If like somebody from the Liberals is able to like, well, they're not too different from me and join you, then I'm like, did she come out and say my values have completely changed and my beliefs about government and all this? No, she didn't. She believes exactly the same thing, but it doesn't really matter as long as she says, oh, I want conservatives to win as opposed to liberals, but they all believe practically the same thing, right? But Trudeau seems to be even dirtier than all other politicians and the Liberals. They just seem to be worse than everybody else. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's just they seem to be, to me, the corporate party that is pretty much an amalgamation of all the new immigrants and elitist white liberals, whereas the Green Party and somewhat the NDP. Well, the NDP is kind of like the Liberal Party too, right? They're kind of the same, but the Green Party seems to be growing now, and they are, I would say, more legitimate in the sense that they actually believe in the nonsense of socialism and shit, whereas all the other people, they're just corporatists, they're crony capitalists, the Liberals, conservatives, and the NDP right now. And I think you're going to start to see a surge of the Green Party and the PPC party in the coming years, as these three parties start to the lines between them start to almost blur, that they're almost indistinguishable, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, I think that it's really interesting, especially as things go even further and become even more polarized. That you're absolutely right. I mean, I think there is potential for the People's Party. Oh, wait, hold on. There we go. Can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, my mic just disconnected itself from my computer. Anyways, I think there's definitely potential for the People's Party and as well for the Green Party on the left. I'm not saying positive or negative. I'm talking about in terms of growth as people become even more polarized in their political views. And who knows? Not in this election, although you're starting to see a bit of a breakthrough from the Greens in a few individual by-elections here and there. And I think in the PEI provincial election, they got a few seats. But so not in this election, not in this cycle, but I think in the next one, it'll be very interesting to see where these things stand. Or, I mean, the Conservatives have on the right, they've certainly proven that they can merge and split with the best of them. Think back to the Canadian Alliance and the Reform and the Progressive Conservatives 20 years ago. So it might just be that again. Who knows? So I think Fred has joined us. He had some technical issues. Fred, are you there?
Can you guys hear me?
You can hear me, no problem. How are you?
Yeah, not good. Mic seems to be busted. I can hear myself talk on these Logitechs, and the Corsair I bought are totally fucking useless.
Mm.
And I'm getting a delay. I can hear myself. It's ridiculous.
Well, you sound great to me, buddy.
I know, but I
we
can
keep
hear
going, right?
myself, and there's a delay, so it's fucking with my head.
Well, okay. Well, how about we'll maybe move on to the next topic here, and you keep working on trying to figure out what's happening on your end.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got one other thing here I want to share. I have another article I want to pop in here to get some opinions based on some changes here in Ontario. And I think some similar changes are already in Alberta, so I don't think other provinces have them, about how the Doug Ford government is going to be changing the way that post-secondary institutions are funded. So in Ontario, all of our universities get, I'm talking about regular operational funds, not capital funds like money for buildings or anything like that. About $3 billion are split across the universities. Only 1.4% of that to this point. Yes, BM, China's definitely messing with Fredrick's mic. And actually, AJ, I see a super chat. We might want to acknowledge them before I continue.
Hey, Rainy Steps for $2.79. He said that ugly chicken is back. So thank you for the donation, Rainy.
There you go. Some money chicken. There you go. And he's even uglier. This week, a few days ago, he changed his picture, so he's even uglier than usual. He's even angrier. Look at those eyebrows. It's just the rage.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, so currently about 1.4% of that $3 billion is tied to actual outcomes. That being, do these people get jobs? Do they get jobs that pay well? Do they get employed in the field they studied in? So now that's going to change, and the percentage is going to change. Something like 60% of post-secondary funding is now going to be tied to how universities and colleges performed on those 10 measures, including things like graduate earnings, number and proportion of graduates in programs with experiential learning, skills and competencies, proportion of graduates employed full-time in related or partially related fields, proportion of students in identified areas of strength, and graduation rate. In other words, the point of most people going to post-secondary
This is so fascist. This is fascism.
It's ridiculous, right? It's insane. It's I mean, all those people who get those $50,000, $60,000 a year jobs in gender studies in the corporate world, which is zero people who just end up going back to school, feeding the machine again working from Starbucks with their purple hair, or they get employed at Fred's school teaching his kids.
Well, it's become a whole scam, right?
Just ridiculous. So,
it's lost its purpose, and now stuff like this is definitely going to make it better. And stuff like, also, didn't he do the whole free speech thing too, as well? And I think Jason Kenney is also doing something similar to that. And it's funny, I saw a tweet from a leftist on Twitter, and here, I'll show it to you right here. And this is a girl, I don't know, Raki Pancholi. I don't know who the fuck she is. I think she's a politician maybe, but she's like, this is May 6th. Imposing American-style principles to provide a platform for hate speech in our post-secondary institutions reveals either a shocking ignorance of or complete disregard for Canadian legal principles around hate speech and freedom of expression. So, this is your response to this. Edmonton Journal. The UCP will require Alberta post-secondary institutions to adopt controversial free speech policies based controversial. But we can teach your kids getting fucked by dildos or something like some degenerate bullshit. But the controversial free speech policies based on U.S. principles that allows speakers, no matter how unwelcome, disagreeable, or even deeply offensive. Say what?
Wait a second. Does that mean if somebody goes to a post-secondary education institution like a university or college, their mode of thinking, the bubble they live in, might be challenged by new ideas that may cause them to rethink some of the assumptions they went into school with as a child.
Right.
That can't be what university and college is for, is it?
I know, right?
Oh my gosh.
I always love reading like the comment sections, because you always got to read the comment sections, especially on like liberal things. And it's like debates and unpopular opinions are already allowed. What isn't is hate speech and rallies by hate groups. This is what is coming to universities with this B policy. It's like, oh my God.
Hey, by the way, speaking of hate groups, you got a super chat from Christian Delorme, $5. Thank you very much, Christian. And he also said that, and I'm presuming he's talking to you and not me, but maybe he's talking to me, that you're a racist Métis and alt-right nana or not. So there you go. Thank you, Christian.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for the super chat. You're a racist plus Métis, alt-right nana or not. I'm not Métis. I said I'm related. L'Oreal is like a cousin. He's a cousin. Got the same white grandmother. She's white. She's European.
Oh my gosh.
But I said that. But thank you for the donation. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. Well, good for you, BM. Okay. But yeah, what the hell was I just talking about there? Oh yeah, the controversial hate speech laws, right? And that one. What's her name? Like, I gotta look at who she is, because I'm just curious. Parent, partner, lawyer. This is a lawyer, dog rescuer, and proud Edmonton, from somebody from Edmonton, MLA elect for Edmonton Whitman. So she's an MLA, and it's like these controversial hates. Like, that's the problem in today's society, right? Like, people are duped into believing that there's such a thing as hate speech, and that it needs to be quelled. And this is why you don't have all these people coming to the fence a lot of times, of people who are being censored on Twitter and stuff, or Facebook, etc., right? For what is called hate speech, because you see them when somebody on the left gets kind of like removed, they go nuts and they're like, oh, we need to get them reinstated. They're free speech, blah blah blah. But on the right, they're like, oh, hate speech, blah blah blah. But I don't know, maybe people, either they're in the mindset where it's like, good, my enemy got censored, I don't give a fuck, or they just don't understand the concept of free speech and how like important it is, and how it would diffuse a lot of tensions, as opposed to creating tensions like the media is trying to lie to people and tell them. Like, if we were able to discuss and talk about things openly, then we could avert a lot of violence in the future, but they don't want us to do that, right? Do I still have the share on? Oh, I do.
Okay, hold on.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Speaking of violence, so Fred sent me a video that really ties into this whole university campus thing. This is from the US, and someone attacking a pro-life demonstrator. The thing that gets me about this, and I'll start displaying the video, and hopefully you can hear it. I don't know if you can, if you can't. But if you can't, don't worry about it, because you pretty much get the message from the video. This guy in the hood is basically put up some pictures, promoting pro-life. And this lady is not a fan. So
I have another video actually up about some other pro-life thing too, right?
Yeah. I mean, the thing that gets me about this, so we talk about free speech, one, but also, if you're pro-choice, then shouldn't you tell people about all their choices, like not aborting the baby? Just, So
yeah, well, they always come up with things like these nice names to label what they're doing, but in reality, it's just like censorship.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
But they'll
15-year-old. Oh, this guy here's. This is downtown. Hold on. So right here, folks, this is Toronto. Sorry, folks, this is... I know exactly this intersection, downtown.
This is the guy that kicks that reporter, right?
Yeah, you're about to see. And you're going to see in a second here. I'm going to break this down, UFC style. So thumbs up, thumbs down. And then he squares up because he's a tough guy. And roundhouse kick to the camera. Classy guy. I meant to kick your phone, and he kicks the girl in the head because he's a tough guy. I think we've seen enough of that. But anyways, yeah, free speech is great.
I got another video just similar to that, where there was that guy just recently the other day. He went after some of these girls. Hold on, where was it? This isn't it, but I know I had the clip up. Did I have it? Yeah, I didn't delete it. You know what? I might have gotten rid of it, but it was like, you guys see that gay activist guy who was like running at those two girls, and or there's three girls and an old lady on the street, and he's like, "Oh, these hateful Christians, these hateful white Christians," and then one of the girls ended up being like Asian or something, and I think this guy was like somebody who runs in the office or is an elected official or something in America. I don't know if you guys saw that clip, but like I had it up earlier. I must have deleted it because I was like, I must have considered it not as important. I was like, fuck it, I'm not going to talk about this. But yeah, it's people, they don't respect freedom of speech, and we all know that, and that's the one, that is the one right that is probably the most important. I was thinking about this, and we're all not going to agree on a lot of different things. That has become fairly clear to me, right? A lot of people, they're going to disagree on a lot of things that we're not going to agree on. But the one thing that we can agree on, I think a lot of people, is free speech. And instead of trying to convince people like the Jews are bad, or ethno-state, or this or that, or this or that, we first got to convince people the importance of freedom of speech and really drill it into their heads. And if we can all unite around that and truly unite around it, as opposed to what some of these, conservatives say, where they're like, I stand for freedom of speech, and like even the alt-right type people. But a lot of the times, they're getting banned right now, and they're saying, well, why am I getting banned? I can understand all these other hateful bigots that got banned, but why am I getting banned? And you're like, well, you should have stood up earlier when a lot of these other alt-right people who were saying stuff that, some of it was racist, that maybe some of those people should have got removed from some of the stuff they were saying. But a lot of the other stuff, it's like people wouldn't stand up for like Jared Taylor, who got removed from Twitter and all these other things long ago, and all these other people, because they're like, well, I don't want to be associated with a white supremacist or a white identitarian or whatnot. But, that's free speech. We got to stand up for it. But I got a super chat from Kel Fritzy for $2. AJ's initials stand for Abdul Jamel. Thank you. That's true. I get that. I get Al Jazeera from Rance Derrick.
Yeah.
I get all these damn fucking nicknames, bastards, but
and,
what are you going to do?
Fred, I think I hear your chair squeaking, so I think you're back.
I do have the video. Never mind. Okay, I'm going to show it because...
One second, AJ. Let's make sure we can hear Fred. Fred, are you there?
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello? What? Can you guys hear me?
Stop it. All right. I'm going to share this video here.
What are you guys talking about? What are you guys talking
about? You're going to see. Watch. Talk about this.
Fucking computers.
A bunch of protesters. A bunch of pseudo-Christian protesters who've been out here shaming young girls for being here. And so here's the deal. I've got $100 to anybody who will identify any of these three.
So we're
going to
actually
donate to Planned Parenthood.
I'm going
to donate to Planned Parenthood. So look, a bunch of people standing up shaming people. There's nothing Christian about what you're doing. Nothing Christian at all about what you're doing. Hi, nothing Christian or loving about what you're doing. So I've got $100 to anybody who will identify as $100. See if you got some friends out here. $100. It'd be easier if you just...
Good job, buddy. Take off your hat. You recognize it.
Come on. Rich, where are you from? Rich, what makes you think that it's your job to tell women what's right for their bodies? And the truth is, I'm not really asking because I don't care. Shame on you. Guys, Planned Parenthood out here faces attacks daily from people like this, from pseudo-Christians saying that they are here to somehow protect their own version of Christianity. So do me a favor. if you've watched this, please consider giving $100 to Planned Parenthood. I'm going to do the same.
Do I see cum on his cheek?
Not
Man.
that observant.
On his lips.
These homos, they're getting to the point where they're becoming extremely annoying. Seriously, and they got nothing better to do. Go home, clean your beard.
Whoa. These homos? You mean homosexuals?
Okay, fine. Homosexuals. Light in the loafers. Fairies.
Well, yeah. You know, they're
fudge packers.
These beta guys who thinks they're being an ally to women, but is really just being kind. But anyways.
No, I don't think that's what they're doing. Gay men hate fucking women. First of all, like they don't like women.
No, but I'm saying I'm not sure that he's gay as much as a heterosexual.
Oh, that guy's gay.
No, that guy's
ally,
gay
For sure.
He's
Look at that.
Oh.
You could tell he's gay.
Right,
Like,
okay. Hey, you guys, listen. You guys know gay men way better than me. You know how to handle them.
He's announced that he is a homosexual.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you could just tell that he was just like, look at these white women doing this, and it's like one of them is like, I'm not white, and then the other guy he went to, I'm like, that guy I don't know what he was, but I'm not gonna say why. I don't know what he was. I don't care, but I'm just saying, like, guy, he was like really focused on that, and we're like, they're not even like white. Like, why? Like,
it would have been great if that older white lady, the one that he was harassing, which just kind of did a 360 with her purse and smashed his head.
So, guys, let's not get too far off that topic, though. I mean, not because the man is gay, but I think the point of that you showing that video was to talk about the free speech argument that we've been discussing. That you have some people who are just, exactly, you're just trying to suppress free speech and free expression. We talked a little bit about pro-choice. And it's like, okay, if there's a pro-choice, then let your people know all their options. And I don't want to pretend to understand everything that goes into this. I think I'm sure it's a very difficult choice for some to have to make these kinds of decisions. I'm not going to. The decision I never want myself or my family to have to make. But I know some people are in a tough spot. That's
so. Like, I can speak
as educated as possible.
I can speak from experience. You know this, Chris, that my wife had an abortion. She had to have one because she was at that age, and she's already had 2 C-sections. If you go through a third, there could be complications. Blah blah blah. She was going through a mental breakdown as well. There were some mental illnesses as well that I had to deal with. So, I didn't really get a chance to think things over. I kind of did want a third child. It would have been financially difficult, but it also would have been a strain on her body and possibly dangerous, right? So she did go through that. But what it did to her mentally, that's what they don't talk about. That's the shit that they don't tell you. And also, thanks, BM. What happened was she would continuously bleed too. Like it just doesn't stop. Like it's messed the internals completely, right? So she has to go for checkups all the time, and it messed up her mind. It messed up her physically, and that's just like that's the shit they don't tell you. I worked with this one guy on a contract downtown. He was also on a contract working with me and got to know him. He was constantly on Tinder bragging about how he's fucking his bitches and blah, 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 right? Some British dude. And, he was from Kenya, right? But, he was educated in Britain and then immigrated here. Thick British accent, right? Anyway, he was going out with all these chicks from Tinder. One day, this chick comes and calls him. She's like, she's pregnant, right? So he's like, oh yeah, good. I don't care. Get an abortion. While he's trying to pick up another girl on Tinder. So the second time it happens, she just goes and he says she's like really depressed, and she's like, I kind of like, I like you and stuff. He goes, I don't care. Just get an abortion. And the third time's a charm. He tells her to get an abortion. She sends him cookies to the work place, and he's like a big huge basket. She's trying to buy him off or something. And it's like, dude, what you're doing to this girl is pretty nasty. You do realize, right? You're not coming off as something like, oh, I'm a real man. You're not a real man. You're just a sick sick sicko that treats women poorly. I know she's a retard herself, right? Because she's got poor taste. But three abortions in a very short period of time, that woman's fucked physically. Mentally down the road, she may not be fucked now, but she will be fixed. Psychologically, she's finished.
I saw a headline the other day from 2016 on Reddit, and it was saying the lady from planned abortion in 2016, I think under the Obama administration, she said that her greatest accomplishment was forcing Christians to pay for abortions, right? That's what she literally said. But it just shows you how despicable, degenerate these folks are. But I got a couple super chats I want to address here. Rainy Steps for 279 said, AJ, kick the old white guy. Hey, some guy gave me $200 to kick old white guy. I didn't do it, man.
No kicking.
You're gonna have to cough up a little bit more. No, my luck.
No, I saw old white guy's video today. I was amazed. Like, that guy's going to survive.
One more thing there. And
go ahead,
Christian Delorme for $7. I love your guest. Buy yourself a Timmy's on me. Hey, AJ, it's okay to be racist plus matey because the current year, right? Yeah. And I also want to say to Base Brat 64 that, yes, there are a lot of good base conservative gay Jews, I was going to say, gay conservatives and right-wingers out there. Sorry, but go ahead, Fredrick.
No, so what I'm saying is that, I like to watch Computing Forever, right? Dave Cullen's got some great, like the way he talks and discusses the current paradigms is really interesting. And I never was the one to pick a side in terms of abortion. It is a very difficult topic. It's a shotgun topic, right? Because you're fucked if you do and you're fucked if you don't, right? Yeah. I do want to support women's rights. I don't want to, like, if a woman is raped in that sense and stuff, I think it's really brutal to make her go through that, right? Because it's a form of a memory. I can't say no. Like, I can't experience what that person's going through. But on the other hand, too, I don't think that, a child giving birth to, like, bringing life into the world is something that's majestic in any life form, but in particular to humans, because we carry a special gift, the gift for self-recognition and realizing we exist, right? We have a consciousness. We have the peculiarity of wondering what exists beyond this reality, and removing that, and just for the sake of, I had a one night fling, and it's easy to remove. You see, when you introduce that aspect psychologically, it's a carefree world. And when my wife, when we went to the abortion clinic, I felt like shit. I saw a ton of people there, young people, just kind of like, eh. And every woman that came out of that room was sobbing. And my wife too, because the procedure what a woman goes through is fucking brutal. How she described it to me, it's just like a vacuum cleaner, and they flush out. You could see like small parts and stuff. At that point, like the question remains with a lot of people: where does life begin and where does life end? Well, sure, it's a culmination of cells early on in the beginning, but at some point, a ghost in the machine, or a soul, or whatever you want to call it, is in that point of time early in the maturation of the fetus. And the intellect may not be there, the self-recognition may be there, but there's something there. Because I look at sometimes my kids, and I could see something staring back at me, right? There's a self-realization. As a baby's looking at you, there's the neurons are working. You can kind of look through biological systems and physiology and stuff, and everything's working, coming together and culminate. But there's something a little bit more than that. And I think you need to experience the act of having a child to realize that. But Dave Cullen said something really interesting. How quickly would a woman or any human being who has a sense of self-criticality, a good moral standing, if a woman's belly was see-through, how quickly would you go out and butcher that living being, creature inside you? And I doubt that the answer would be a frequent yes, right? But because everything's hidden, and that's how we operate too. We operate the same way on debt. Oh, okay, don't worry. I don't, that's how it happens with debit, right? Or credit cards. You don't see it. You don't see the money physically coming out of your wallet. I noticed when I have money in my wallet, I tend to keep it. I want to hold on to it. I want to part with it less. But with the credit card, you don't see the interactions and transactions that are happening, and then you go, wow, I spent so much, right?
Out of sight, out of mind, right? So
right. Sorry, I didn't mean to, upset Wow there. But anyway, I'm just speaking from this perspective that I get it. I think there should be, I'm trying to play a balanced approach, but I do see both sides of the story, and I think there.
Well, who is proposing women go through abortions that is going to kill them? I don't think anybody is even proposing that. Even like the most pro-life people are like, yeah, if she's going to die,
yeah, well, absolutely,
yeah, abort it, right? I think everybody agrees with that, but it all comes down to when you start making compromises past that, then it just continues, right? It's like, okay, we should make exceptions for if they're sick, or maybe possibly rape even too, right? Maybe, I don't know, even that. It gets tricky because everything becomes a slippery slope, it seems like, you open up one thing and then you're like, wait, you think back and like, wait, that had a lot of horrible effects, right? It's kind of like what it is now for a lot of things. And you're like, oh, we should take women's rights away. But first I want to read Wow Addict for $5. I'm trying to eat while Fred describes vacuum birth. So yeah, Fred, make sure you stop talking about that. But yeah, abortions is a very tricky subject, and it's very divisive, right? It is definitely very divisive.
But it doesn't have to be, right? There's a sense of morality, right? So if we weren't so floozy in our sexual behaviors and our sexual appetites, because these are vices that we all have it, right? We all have, a potential for misbehaving. But what keeps some of us in check and what keeps others let loose, right? So we respect the people that keep their vices in check because it's mental strength, right? It's the practice and the act of trying to do good or trying to be better while recognizing that you have the potential to do wrong, right? And that's what makes us human in a sense. But people who just let loose on their vices, then you lose respect for them, right? A lot of people won't have a respect if somebody's just saying, well, I'm an alcoholic and I can't do anything about it, blah, 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 right? People respect people that say, I'm an alcoholic, I recognize this. And, there's a saying, the first step to education is the recognition of ignorance. Right. The same thing. That's why they tell you with alcoholics, I have an alcoholic problem. You have to recognize it and then want to make the next step. And that's the thing, right? So it's easy. If you're a floozy and, you can walk in and get an abortion right quick, then you really have no moral ground or sense to be anything of a human being, because you have to think about choices in the world that can impact you, right?
Well, there's that, right? There's incentive, right? But then, like we always talk about, there's incentive for people to get abortions. But then there's all these people not getting abortions. Like I see Julie, she's like, it's easy. Don't kill unborn children, right? And it really is that easy, right? People could say, you could say, well, they're floozies. Well, you could be a floozy, but you could still have your baby and not kill it. Like you could still be a whore and a slut and still, birth your child and not kill it.
That's true, but how many whores do you know that give birth to their kids? Like that's
lots. I know lots of whores that I know. My niece, her fucking mother is one of those whores that gives birth to 6 different ethnic minority kids, all different races. Like I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that she's a whore, and all of her kids, like my brother, like they're all different races because they're all different dads, right?
And
she tries one and hopes that he'll stay, and he doesn't.
But at least she's not aborting them, right? But But yeah, it is really that simple. And I think it goes back to the discussion we've had a couple different times already about ethics, morals. Is there such thing as a right and a wrong, a concrete, a right and a wrong? And if there is, and if we can point to that, then we could point to these people and be like, hey, what you're doing is wrong. It's bad, but they're like, no, it's just a clump of cells or whatnot and whatever. But yeah, it's certain, like, that's the thing. It is a really complex thing because I'm not religious. I don't think anything like that. But so I'm thinking, like, if it's in like the first month or something, okay. But then again, I say that, but then there's always a slippery slope. People will say, oh, okay, a month. Well, okay, 2 months. Well, okay, 3 months. Okay, 3.5, 4.5, and they keep pushing it. It's like gun rights. Oh, okay, well, we don't need this caliber of weapon. Okay, we don't need bump stocks. Okay, we don't need this here. Oh, it's just slowly. So
everything in life is an act of measure, right?
Well, it is definitely, but you need structure in your society.
And there's an aspect to responsibility as well. And there's a comment I saw here from BM. Let me just go back a little bit further, scroll up in the chat for BM and BM and any of you in the chat. If I use gender pronouns for you and I make some assumptions, feel free to correct me in the chat. That's kind of a running joke that I have with this show here. BM said it's easy for men to decide about abortion, and then I think they made a few jokes along the way. But I think, in all seriousness, I mean, we're three dudes having a conversation about abortion. Not that it doesn't impact us. I mean, I'm a father of two. Fred is a father of two as well. So I mean, certainly, that it does impact men, certainly. But I think for three guys to be having this conversation about what's right and wrong without women in it, I think probably does a disservice to the conversation. Looking at some of the comments from some of the people who again, gender pronouns, assuming are women. Julie Mora mentioned it's easy, don't kill unborn children. I've seen that seconded a few times. Faye mentioned that there's several forms of that. There's no excuse these days. There's so many forms of birth control that essentially with some responsibility, these things can be prevented before they
you can practice safe sex. Like, you don't have to, like, you don't. There's also, I understand there's modern technology to ensure that you don't get pregnant, and it's actually almost 100% effective, right? If used in certain combinations as well. But the other thing is too, you can be responsible, have sex with someone you love, and actually, and I'll tell you, just from experience, I've been with quite a few women in my life, right? Not like a lot, but I've been more than enough. And what I can say is that the best sex with a woman is the woman that you love, that you know each other, right? When you know each other, what drives each other, and then you understand that there's the estrus, and you practice safe sex. And you know what? If you love each other, you care for each other, most of the time it happens. She might get pregnant, and then you have a child. You grow a family. I mean, when I was very careful, even from out of high school, because hell or high water, I did not want to have a child, because I was one of those people. I didn't want to be responsible. Like, I wouldn't just go and tell any woman, get an abortion, just because I didn't want to, have that financial burden. Because I was of character, body, soul, and mind. Maybe it was because of my parental upbringing, because like my father said many times, if you ever find me on welfare, shoot me. And it's just that kind of like that we're hard work, middle class ethic. But at the same time, I knew I didn't want to be in that position. I did not want to be strapped or raptured or coerced into a situation where a baby is in existence, and then let's say even the relationship falls apart. The relationship, that's what people lack today. It's because everything is a muse to them. Watch TV, everything's noise and this and there's no there is no moment where a person sits alone and ponders, looks, goes through a book. and pauses, thinks about, regurgitates what they've read, and percolate that in the brain a little bit, or watches one of these YouTube videos, or somebody like Poseidon that talks and just percolate through the things and think, well, I don't really disagree with that. Let's talk more about that. And this is what we're doing. This is what should be what should be more of a participation. But people don't have that propensity to do that anymore because it's all immediate gratification, instant gratification. What is Twitter? It's instant gratification. What is all of this text messaging apps, Facebook? And they know this. It's well designed into the application that it's a, with the like buttons, it's a Pavlovian activity where when you, like the mouse hitting the button to stimulate those dopamine centers. It's exactly what happens with humans. And if you go out today, majority of the time, you will see these people sitting in these restaurants, and all their faces are buried in their cell phones. They no longer have conversations because they're now essentially cyborgs. The only difference is that you haven't actually merged into the actual device, right? And the thing is, back in the old days, people worked. You go out there, get up in the morning, you got to cut some wood. Like when I saw Old White Guy's video today, there was a sense of nostalgia for me because I remember as an early kid, I used to live with my grandmother for the summers, go back to Vadish, which is a fucking old mining town, and we would go like 200 kilometers outside the mining town in the middle of nowhere in the hills. You have to climb for 2 hours, and there's some farms up there. I had some uncles and nephews, and we would pick mushrooms and just hunt and stuff. I'd learn how to throw knives with my uncles, how to make them as well. There was a sense of nostalgia. You couldn't do that on your own. No, we're a gregarious species, so we need to live in small communities because each one is, good at doing something. But you're doing something all the time. There weren't people up there in those communities that had abortions. There was no such thing. Everybody knew everybody. If you met a girl, you like the girl, and the girl settles. But now everything's just, like you look, everything's a dick tease. Everything's a ass tease. It's the way we sell things. We sell cars with girls on top. And there's nothing wrong with that because we know that we are in some form, we are still troglodytic in behavior. But again, you need to practice and subvert those vices. This is the act of what humans should do the best. And when we do this, when we subvert those vices, we actually are more successful, right? Because everybody would love to drink. I would love to drink, to be in a constant stupor. That's amazing, right? You're kind of like La La Land, but you're not going to be successful. So it's always an active measure. It's always an act of like, should I be doing this, or should I be spending on my money on this? Do I really need this? Every time I go out there, I kill myself almost. It's like a neurosis. Do I really, really need this? Do I really need this? Can I get by without this? And it's a form that I have to learn, right? It's not easy because we're all really easy to spend to there was this comedian, Doug Stanhope. He said, sex is just an act of like a 2-minute act. It's just everything. Blurt, blurt. But try being with the woman who's had her breast cut off because of cancer and she's embarrassed to show her body, but you know her very well and you care for her. You cherish her. That takes more. That's more exciting. And that's harder to do. But it's very easy to do the act of copulation. It's easy. Most animals do it all the time.
Yeah.
But so what is your point here, though?
My point here, all around, is that we have to go back to the basics of our behavior, and whether it's politics or how we treat each other, whether how we look at things like abortion, how we look at these sexual perversions, and we need to get back to the basics ASAP, because we are so far removed from what we were, or what a good moral person is. It's like a race. We just want to run faster and faster. What's the weirdest, stupidest, dumbest thing we can do? Oh, we're going to elect AOC, right? Oh, we need another body to govern us.
Okay. So just to probably move us closer to the, like I was saying earlier, that this topic is, I don't want to go too far down too many rabbit holes in terms of the conversation about personal responsibility, about accountability. I'm with you, Fred, on much of that. Just to wrap up the abortion piece in terms of tying into the responsibility, there's a comment that Faye left. I want to make sure that the women are being heard here. And she says that abortion should not be used as birth control. And I think that is a very excellent summary of the current status of things with abortion. It should be taken much more seriously than that. And frankly, it should be prevented in the first place with proper birth control, but also the kind of responsibility and quality relationships that you're talking about, Fred. So, right, AJ, do you have anything else you wanted to add on that free speech / abortion topic? Very light topic on our Wednesday
thing is
show.
just it's like I said, it's one of those topics that I'm just like, you know what, it's not that it's too divisive. It's just that it's almost like a boomer topic. No offense at this point. I'm joking, but it's like I'm just like fuck it. You know, it's horrible. Like it sickens me the amount that leftists like relish getting abortions and shit, and they're like, yeah, and they're like, there was a picture the other day of a bunch of abortion activists dancing in a grave of abortion babies, right? Like there's a grave of unborn babies, right? And there's all these little crosses, and there's like these people dancing, and it's like that is sickening to me, right? And I'm like, how could you do that? Like obviously, you know, people find that disgusting, and it is disgusting, but I'm like, yeah. You know what? It's I don't know. Maybe it does tie into a lot of other things, right? You know, maybe if they can get us to abort 9-month-old babies, then they've pretty much won, right? Or we're in 1984 where they've gotten us to admit that, you know, they're our masters and we love them, and then they're gonna let the rats eat our fucking face or something. But
well, you know, what's next then? Abort 16-year-olds, abort 30-years-olds.
Well, yeah, maybe, you know, it is that maybe it's just an example of the degradation of society and how we've lost a lot of our more. It's a personification of that, and we can see it with just allowing that to, and just what we're doing with kids right now, seeing 8-year-old boys being used in documentaries and like with trannies and stuff. I saw a picture of like, you know, this gay transsexual holding like a little baby, and they're completely naked together and stuff. And you're like, this is disturbing, right? Like,
well, what do you think is going to happen when these people grow up? When you're teaching these young kids to have sex earlier and to you know, experience sexuality to the core, to the you know, Dionysian core, and then when they'll be having kids at 15, 16, you know, a little later. And then what? They'll just be aborting them like this. Abortions will go through the roof. There'll be a great money-making business, and then Bezos will get all his baby blood that he wants, and he'll live forever.
So, guys,
Right.
One thing we talked about on the show quite a bit is immigration. And I would just happen while you guys are talking, I thought to myself, how many abortions are done in Canada every year? Interesting. And so I found the numbers. And you can see on your screen some of those numbers. So in 2017, the latest, this is updated this year, but the latest numbers I have for 2017, 94,000 abortions, between 29,000 in hospitals and 64,000 in private clinics across the country. And I'm sure some of those, of course, are for birth defects, absolute products of rape, etc. I'm willing to bet that those exceptions, like a lot of things that people get a little hysterical and say and go to those extreme examples. I mean, those are extreme examples, but I think those are probably a vast minority of examples, an extreme minority of examples compared to the overall number. So that's 100,000. Roughly, the numbers have stayed between 90 and 100,000. And also, hospitals are it's mandatory for hospitals to report abortion numbers. It is not mandatory for clinics. So the clinic number could actually be higher than what's being reported. Just most clinics happen to report, or so it's believed that most are reporting. So you got like 100,000 plus. And actually, you can see here, actually, as the numbers came in for previous years, so look at 2011, the original number was 92,000. Eventually, they revised it to 108. And then 100,000, 102,000, 100, and 1,000. So it's very interesting to see these numbers in terms of, hey, these guys are talking about, well, we need to increase the population. People aren't having babies. Well, they are, or they could. They're just not keeping it. Or at least having them in responsible situations.
Yeah, I've known women that tell me that, like, this one girl, and she was saying when she was in university, and, she was fairly traditional, but she was hearing from other girls, they're like, oh, I don't want a baby inside me. It's like a little cancer growing inside me. And I even saw there was a picture released from a university class the other day. I remember seeing a picture of this, and it showed fetuses, how they're just like cancer. And it was showing like all the examples how a fetus growing inside you is just like a cancerous growth. So they're like putting this in women's head.
Yeah.
You don't need a baby. Terrible. Oh, if you have one by 22, you're going to ruin your life and your job and your prospects, and you're going to be a stupid mother or something like that, right? And
comparing a baby to a cancerous cell or to some kind of parasite feeding off the mother rather than the creation of life. Completely perverted what is truly a beautiful thing, the creation of life.
Well, it's not only that, right? But slavery McSlaverson, I don't know, I have to look up if this is real because it is fucking sick. In Canada, a woman shot her baby in the head. Jesus Christ. Like, some people should be aborted later in life, or given a license to breed. But, the other problem is with abortion too, because early on, you can't tell what sex it is, right? And look what the kind of problem China faces right now, because there were selective abortions. So the selection was always a preference for a male, right? And now they have a huge problem with males being unable to find mates for the rest, moving on to the next stage of life. There's a lot of men who are looking for women and they can't find it, right? A lot of them are going crazy. So there's the other component of it too, because you screw up, because I think the natural tendency is for more females than males. So
it's like 51% to 49%.
Well, no, it's actually it's more. There's a natural tendency for more males than females, but then what happens is as we age, more males tend to die off from risky behavior or different things, right? That start to bring down the numbers, but that's naturally how it always works. There's always slightly more men, and then it ends up balancing itself out, right? And that's why there's more diversity in men too, right? There's a larger pool, where women, they'll kind of group around the center of IQ distribution, right? And they'll stay kind of middle, and then that's why you don't really see women necessarily at the extremes of math or at the very extremes of stupid, right? You'll see very stupid men, but also some very really intelligent men. So there's a lot more variety in the man species, I guess you could say, right? But there is a lot of examples of dumb retards that that kind of give the rest of us a bad name, right? But that is interesting. But yeah, that like you were saying, China, they completely fucked themselves by only having boys. Now they have a huge problem. So this is just another thing of government intervention, how you don't need all this social planning. Things will just take care of themselves. We've existed to this point and gotten to this point without government funding kids for hundreds of thousands of years. I don't think we need them now to sustain our population and keep having kids, right? We don't need their help, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of social programs that have been created, especially in the U.S. We talked about the Great Society and some of the other things in the U.S., but also here in Canada, some more social programs have allowed people to marry the state, have allowed people to forego a former relationship, and the consequences of their actions are mitigated because there's some program that will support them in many ways. So certainly there's that. Yeah. Are you guys going to continue going on this one, or do you want to move to another topic?
Well, do you have any ones in line? Because I got a couple other things I could bring up, but if you had something pressing you wanted to bring up or something.
I got a few more, and I think Fred had a couple more. So I'm just looking at the time, and I want to make sure we have time to talk about whatever people want to talk about.
Well, I don't have any. I'm just following the conversation, and I'll add my 2 cents, whatever it's worth. But I did want to cover. I'm giving credit to Captain Chattel. I will be doing a video thanks to him. I understand a lot of people like the PPC and stuff, but I always hold my reservations. I will not. I can't create an icon of any other individual that says to me, "Oh, I have the best answers to rule over you." I just can't. It's not in me. I know some people want to. You need to prove to me first that you're of value and worth, right? So I wanted to cover off some of these individuals that are like infiltrating the I like to call them the rats in the PPC, and we need to kind of question this out. We need to talk about it because it has to be brought into the fray. I talked about it in my last video where that one conservative from London was actively giving quotes on the ogre's page, right? Saying, "Oh, we need to believe in rights and shit." Well, how are you a conservative? By definition alone, you are not. But anyways, that's kind of what I want to talk about. But you guys,
we need to do what with Morgan Ogre?
No, what I'm saying is that we need to talk about what these couple other individuals that are active in the PPC and Joanna Mini, who's also active in the PPC, and call out a lot of the work that they've done with this kind of social progressive programs, right? And what do you do? Do we go and talk to and send emails to Bernie and say, "Hey, man, I got some concerns here. Why are these people here who are on video?" and are active in the Saskatchewan Writing Association for a PPC, but have videos they were asking for open borders, right? It just
is that some guy from like a while ago or something, or was that?
Well, there was a 2015 video, but who cares if it was 4 years?
Man,
3 years? It's irrelevant.
Like this is the shit that I just don't get. It's like we gotta pick at these little seams and be like, well, what about this guy? He's the only person calling out Morgan Ogre right now, but you want to be like, hey, but in 2015 you had one guy that worked for you that was a social justice warrior. Wow, there's conservatives not saying anything, liberals not saying anything, NDP not saying anything, Greens not saying anything. And it's like, I think you're just looking for an excuse not to support him for whatever reason, man. I'm like, I get it.
I'm not looking for any reason.
I'm just saying. It sucks. Nobody wants to attach their name or face like me to anything, right? Because there's that chance that you could be wrong, right? But who cares, right? I don't give a fuck. And I'm like, I don't think he's going to save the world. Nobody's saying he's going to come and fix everything, just like Trump isn't going to come and fix everything. He's not going to solve our problems. Nobody like that's going to solve our problems. Now, we need to push him to keep changing and still to talk more about immigration, which I think he's starting to do a little bit more now, and a few other things. And like he's calling out the Morgan Ogre thing as well. We need to keep pushing him, like what you're saying. We need to keep pushing them on stuff. But if there's somebody, you know what, like when it comes to staff and people working with you, it's sometimes you got to kind of take what is there. If somebody knows how to use social media or use get your name out there and they'll come and work for you, okay, right? It's like, maybe it'll backfire on them, right? But that's going to happen with any party. You're going to get people that enter and that maybe will turn around and start to, try to release information on everybody afterwards, or that's kind of shady themselves. Like there's going to be those people that enter that, and he's never going to be perfect. He's never going to be perfect at all. But what is better in Canada? I don't see really anything else. Even like the National Party and stuff, and the Christian Heritage Party. The problem with that is they have no reach, none. Nobody sees them. The media doesn't talk about them.
Yeah, you're right. And let's be careful. I mean, Fred, what you're describing is completely accurate. I think that So a lot of times the people working behind the scenes in these parties, maybe in some cases they're just saying and doing what they think they have to win rather than what they actually believe, or maybe not. But at the same time, we have to be careful not to make the same mistakes we see the left doing or on the extremes doing, essentially eating ourselves in terms of the people who are representing one thing or another. Because that'll just push people into liberal hands. Yes, what you're describing is important to discuss. I'm not saying it has to be with the balance between exposing certain things and versus dragging people who are not perfect. There is no such thing when it comes to politicians, but who are perhaps closer aligned to the things, the values that we support versus somebody else. So, do I trust any politician? No. But I wouldn't say trust. I would say I dislike some less or more than others. And it's kind of, picking the points. And it doesn't matter. You don't even vote. So anyways.
Yeah, but this has been a 60-year slow burn to where we are right now, right? With each iteration, we say, this guy, he says the right thing. I think he's great. And then utter disappointment.
No, you got to
No. Remember Trudeau? Everybody, a lot of people were all over oozing, this. Oh,
and he wasn't saying the right things because we were all deluded in thinking that or a lot of people were deluded that all the shit he was saying was good, right? Whereas a lot of people now, if they're like, the thing is, Max is saying the good things. Like Trudeau wasn't talking about lowering, equalization payments or doing.
No, but he was saying he was going to say, proportional representation or.
That was exactly what I was going to bring up.
That was also stupid. That was bad. It's good that we don't have proportional representation. That's a horrible thing. If we had proportional
That's irrelevant whether it's good or bad. He brought it up. He didn't care. He said, I'm going to give to the middle class. He said all the key words that people were going nuts over.
Yeah. Yep. And people were dumb. That's like AOC. It's like saying the same thing. Okay. AOC says all the right things to a leftist idiot.
Well, the wrong things, but
who cares? No, she's saying all the right things to a leftist idiot who's like, she's saying all the right things. Tax the rich at 80-90% of their wages and do this and do that. That's not the right things. That's the wrong things. But you're right. It's the wrong things, but the right things for left.
As I said to Fred, just to flip to AOC for a half second, although it's probably going to turn to more than this. I did the math, and she can run for president in 2024. Just saying. She's got a few years to build her platform. Minimum age for being president is 35, and she'll be 34 during the campaign and will turn 35 just before the election or just before she would take office. So Trump will be reelected, but I think we need to be more concerned with 2024 because if he goes the way that things go in the U.S., you see there's a swing between Democrats and Republicans every single time. And if the Dems go too far in one direction, you see the platform she has already, she will very much be, I can see her very much being their candidate.
Listen, about 75 years ago, on some great and glorious day, the plain folks of the land will reach their heart's desire, and at last, the White House will be adorned by a downright moron. Some guy said that 75
years ago?
Yeah.
Sorry, Base Brat. I was referring to Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, one of the
occasional Cortex. Yeah. Well, there's an absolute possibility with looking at the current standards. I mean, the Bronx should not be allowed to vote. Period. Right? Because I'm taking notes. I've watched the documentary twice. My ears were bleeding.
Oh my God! You subjected yourself to that.
And I'm watching and I'm thinking, good God, when you watch her go around and what the garbage that she spews along with the others, and then what they do is a third of the movie is about the pity, right? It's the victimology. Well, I had my daughter and she died. It was very unfortunate. I feel for your daughter. I really do. I am a feeling human being. But why are you pushing this? And then the other one was like, my father died. Well, is this a documentary or is this like a sob story? Which one is it? But anyways, what I'm saying is that if you looked at the parts where they were going about in the Bronx, and the garbage that she was spewing, and no one had even questioned, like, what do you think we're gonna tax the rich. Oh, really? Where the rich gonna go? And who usually gets taxed, who gets hit? It's the middle class. It's me, you, it's Chris. We're the ones that get fucked.
You know what nobody's talking about either is the Panama Papers.
of
Remember how
course.
everybody forgot about that?
They're not in Canada. They're not, but they are other places in the world.
All these rich people don't pay taxes. That's another thing that people don't understand.
Well, we won't hear. Right, we won't hear about it anymore because they blew her ass out. Right in Sicily.
Oh, right.
They blew her to pieces. Nobody talks about that.
They got killed. And speaking of getting killed, I was looking at this one guy, his Twitter account, Michelle Caitlin, and I suggest you guys follow this person. They got some interesting stuff and some interesting positions on stuff. But I also like this comment. I'll show you this video right here. It's actually really interesting. But hold on one sec. I'll pause it for now. Cunt. But this comment I want to read first. Capitalism is merely an economic, because he was arguing with somebody. But this just encapsulates exactly what's going on, or what I think too. Capitalism is merely an economic system of capital and exchange, right? He's responding to this guy. Tradition and culture has been maintained under this system for centuries. Meanwhile, socialist and communist movements openly stamped out religion, culture, and the family unit, which were all declared bourgeoisie, right? So, you hear a lot of this from these National Socialist type, like, capitalism is bad and it destroyed this, but this guy just kind of eviscerates. It's like, no, it's an economic system, has nothing to do with culture and tradition, and it was maintained under that. But I want to show this video here. So on this day in 2002, Dutch politician Pim Fort, whatever his name is, was assassinated by a far-left activist. Before Trump, Wilder, Salvini, Brexit, etc., he was already daring to talk about issues like immigration and Islam and change the course of Dutch politics. So I just thought this was really interesting. This guy, he got killed, but it shows you what they don't want you to really talk about. And this was in 2002. I thought it was kind of interesting discussion here. One sec. It always does that whenever I went to go. One sec. Come on, you bitch. Here, 1 second here. Maybe if I refresh the page or something. I don't know. It does this on Twitter whenever you do that, but oh fuck, now I have to go find it again. Son of a bitch. Well, here, I'll go down a little bit. It's not too far. It's on May 6th. 1 sec. But yeah, it's just this politician from the UK. Okay, this is it right here. Okay. I mean, from I think it was.
Maar mensen, het is 11:55. Niet in Nederland, maar in Europa. En wilt u dat? Ik sta voor dit land. Wat hier 5, 6 eeuw is opgebouwd. En we hebben godverdomme hier gewoon een 5e kolonne. Laat ik nu maar alles zeggen. Een 5e kolonne. Van mensen die dat land naar de verdommenis willen brengen. En daar ga ik niet voor. En ik zeg, u mag hier blijven, maar u past u aan. En ik moet daar horen, Allah is groot. Ik ben een vies varken. U bent een christenhond. Dat zeggen zij. En u vindt het goed. En ik ben heel beheerst tot nu toe geweest. Ik heb het nooit herhaald. Maar u laat over zich lopen. En ik doe het niet meer. En dat is waar ik die zetels vandaan haal. Want dit land is het zat. Zij zat. Daar sta ik voor. En als ik dat anders moet verwoorden, prima. Maar het gaat om uw kinderen, om uw kleinkinderen. Waar gaat het anders om? Moet ik nog meer hier neerzetten? Ik kan niet anders. En ik doe niet anders. Dan maar ik afgemaakt. Oké, prima. Maar het probleem, meneer, dat blijft. Dat blijft. Mensen hebben er meer dan genoeg van. Godverdomme in mijn stad. Marokkaanse jongens, Turkse jongens. Die niet die Turken, niet die Marokkanen beroven, Maar u en mij, oude vrouwtjes. En de politie, wat doen ze? Godverdomme niks. Die zeggen, als je dat zegt, discrimineer.
I like this guy.
Dat is verwoording van het Nederlandse volk. En ik sta ervoor. Ik sta ervoor. Mag het niet? Oké. Ik respecteer.
Speaking of that, this
I
is
really
the,
like this guy. Wow.
So he's the guy who got shot?
well, yeah, he was killed right in 2002,
Yeah, no
and
kidding.
but speaking of that, you know, he was talking about Turkish people, you know, killing like the Dutch girls and targeting them, and this motherfucker in the UK, this Pakistani rapper, in his rap, pimp who's rapping about grooming gangs, and he was talking about like, you know, white girls and how, you know, he's got all these white girls whoring for him, and this and that, and the BBC was playing this guy, and all they did was edit out his swears, but they kept all the other shit, and then later, after some outrage, you know, they took it down. But you know, he's saying had them white birds on the side curbs looking for a dirty pie or a white nerd, you know, and it, like, imagine if, like, you know, he's talking about a huge problem in the UK where all these girls were being raped by Pakistani gangs. This guy's a fucking Pakistani, has the gall to openly do this, and then he comes out saying like he's the victim afterwards.
Where the fuck are the parents for these kids, though?
Yeah, right. You know,
They're working 2 and 3 jobs because everybody's too busy to parent their children anymore, or they're out doing or they have these kids super young and are doing activities that are trying to get them the freedom and childhood they lost because they had these kids too young and had to get to work early. So either way.
It's just, you know, I don't know. It's probably a lot of things, right? You know, people not watching their kids, you know,
things.
There's a number of things, you know, there's the TV that they watch that is telling them, you know, not to be fearful essentially of the people that are coming in. And it's like, yeah, you shouldn't be fearful necessarily of people, but you got to be fucking wary, and you can't think everybody's the same and everybody from every culture, because look at this motherfucker. He has absolutely no respect whatsoever for the people of the UK at all. And, you know, if this was the roles were reversed, as some white dude talking about how he loves to, you know, use these Muslim job girls as whores, and it was like a big problem, you know, like it would be a national fucking outrage and shit.
Well,
but
it's not only that. The police were like, you know, actively not investigating. They were
yeah,
avoiding a lot
know.
of reports. And, you know, even when, what's his name? He went to jail several times. Tommy Robinson, right? When he was openly discussing it, they harassed him, right? They harassed his family. They made his life a nightmare. But I give kudos to that man because he's tough as fucking nails, right? He just doesn't stop. He's like a motor machine. But, you know, like I like that politician too. But even before the Panama Papers, right? There were a lot of. It was about 2 months or 3 months. Remember, Chris, before the Panama Papers came out, they had some the CRA, Canadian Revenue Agency, was looking into people in BC who were offshoring money from their properties into Panama, and that's what actually triggered those Panama Papers, because they were a part of it. It was just a piece of it, and that's when those Panama Papers out. And then Mora was a part of those Panama Papers.
Yeah, right. A lot of Canadians,
you know, former conservatives, right? I mean, it's absolutely disgusting. Our politics is so fucking corrupt. We make India look good. That's no lie, right? And that's what makes.
There's been article after article lately about how impotent, and I'd say intentionally, deliberately impotent Canada's ability to track certain things are. In fact, you can go ahead and make your point, Brett, and I'll share an article or two in a second just talking about that. It's just literally, Global News, to their credit, has been right on top of it, and now I'm starting to see City News and other places start to pick it up. But article after article, especially in BC, about luxury cars, casinos, in Ontario and in BC, about real estate. But anyways, you go ahead, Fred, and I'll pull up a couple seconds.
No. I mean, you mentioned real estate. That's another. It's terrifying. So, guys, just so you know, I'm going to give you a little bit of a glimpse into my life, right? So you understand that I'm just like every other Joe Blow. I do make a good salary, but that salary no longer is. That salary is meaningless because with the number of taxes, So this is what happens, right? If you're somewhat of a lower, let's say, educational class and you work in the city, there isn't many jobs available to you, you're making about 24,000, which is poverty rates, because this city you have, it's almost like Tokyo, right? It's extremely expensive to live in this shit city, and you're at the poverty level, but you get a lot of money back. But the more incrementals you make to get to the point where you're saying, now I'm comfortable, they keep taking more away from you. So you're fucked if you do and you're fucked if you don't. It's actually better to make less and rent and live on your own. And that's how they're getting it too. That's how they're getting it to you too. This is so, when people out there are saying, "Go make babies." Oh, so what? So impoverish myself more and make a unruly child? You can't do that. You have to factor shit in. You have to be smarter. That's why the society in the West was better, because people were planning their births, right? It's like a fucking investment. The society wants a return on its investment. It has to be well schooled, so you don't end up with as a welfare case, which is a burden on society, which again formulates the base and standards of morals. Right. So what they do now is like, okay, kids, fuck early, have abort early, don't have relationships anymore. Make the parents work like dogs so they can't raise their kids, so the state can raise them for you. And then also it's better to work less, because the more you earn and you get to the point, I've got my education, now I'm earning six figures. We're going to take 40,000 from you.
Right.
What's the point?
It disincentivizes work. Right.
They keep fucking you and fucking and squeezing.
They're like, why are we not competitive?
But the thing is, they're squeezing you. They're squeezing AJ. They're squeezing me. They're squeezing what I presume is some of the folks in the chat. I'm assuming nobody in the chat.
I'm assuming 100% of them, otherwise they wouldn't be here.
Right. Sure, exactly, right? So that's the people they're squeezing. But the articles you're talking about, Fred, are things like KPMG being hired by companies and people of wealth to basically negotiate with CRA on their behalf and get rid of and be able to pay no tax or no penalties. The kind of stuff that they would chase you for $5 on. These people owe hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, and they're getting a pass or breaks or tons of time to pay. By the way, just to take a step back, we did get a couple of super chats. One from Boingo Bear, thank you very much. And then also from Wow Addict, middle class pays almost 2% tax with sales property. Absolutely, more than that. Wow Addict, especially if you're in Toronto. I mean, to survive here, where Fred and I are, you really need to make over 100K.
My property,
if you have a family.
My property tax is $2,600 a year. That's not including garbage and everything else that I get, or sorry, not garbage, it's hydro, which is a form of tax, right? Because they tax you like you see how they fucked you with those smart meters? I swear to God, my fucking hydro bills are they like don't lose it really late at night. So what are my wife and kids do? We all participate together on the weekends late at fucking night, and then my bill's still high. Everything is LED in my house. We all keep the lights on. Guys, keep all the lights off. We're live in darkness.
Well, they're purposely raising the price on a lot of shit too. Like people, you have to check how much they're charging you, because sometimes they're way overcharging you, and there's no mechanism a lot of the times to hold them accountable, because they're like a monopoly, right? A lot like in Manitoba here, they're like the government controlled. They're a monopoly, and even in other places where they're kind of more privatized, they have that monopoly status essentially, and they get to keep it, so they can kind of just fuck you, charge whatever they want, and it's so unaffordable. And man, like for me in the winter, it costs a lot of fucking money, and it's difficult to manage. And that's one of the things too, where you get these kind of basic conservative types that will be like they think the economy is the exact same as it was when they were growing up, and they're like, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But you're like, that's true. People should work harder. and they need to work harder. And there's a lot of entitlement that goes around with the younger generation, but it's not the same work market that existed when people grew up before. And like, think about the government that employs millions of people in Canada. Do they employ I don't know, white men anymore? Like, yeah, there is people where, you know, you can still get a job there if like your grandfather worked there, and then maybe he'll get you a job in there, you know, through family ties to work in the government. But now it's like they got all this diversity hiring that they didn't have in the past. They're like, we're going to purposefully exclude you. And not only that, not even just government jobs. There's a lot of people who work and do government contracts that are technically private businesses that also have to comply with all the regulations that the government imposes on the federal sector. So because they're like, well, if you want to work for us, you have to do all this other stuff, right? So it's not the same market whatsoever. People don't have the same opportunities to scale up like they used to. And just say, oh, shut up, just have more babies and work harder. You're like, thanks. You sound exactly like the leftist who are telling me the same exact thing. You know,
why are so many people? Why are there so many men killing themselves? Because they can't take the stress. Women out there that I see in my work, and it's mostly women. They're crying. Let's go for lunch.
Yeah,
The
more women attempt suicide, but men get the job done.
Yeah, that's true, right? And the thing is too, is like, you know, you got to look at in America, right? This is the throwaway population. There's a lot of suicide going on, and the same with the North in Canada here with a lot of the Aboriginals, right? People will kill themselves, will go on drugs, opioids when there's no opportunity, when there's no job prospects whatsoever. And this is why you see, you know, massive spike in all these suicides in the North Reserve, because there's nothing. There's no opportunity. And the same with all of these jobs, like in the coal mining industry, all these guys, first of all, there's a lot of people over-prescribing these drugs to people on purpose, which the Purdue company in America is being charged right now for purposely over-prescribing and not telling people the actual side effects of the issue and all this other stuff. So there's that. Plus, these people were working hard labor jobs that they're like, here, take a bunch of oxys, right? And they're like, you know, their back is fucked from working in a coal mine all this year. And now they're on oxys. Now people are like, ah, you stupid fucking hick. You deserve this because you're racist. Blah, 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 right? They want those people to die. They're waiting for them to die out. They're not. Right. That's why you see all the money going to all these other people in different places, to the east and to the west, and they just ignore these people, and they're just waiting for them to all just kill each other or whatever, right?
Yep. I always believe when something continues along for long enough, there are people who are absolutely profiting from things being as terrible as they are for certain groups, and are profiting from those groups. When you look at certain groups where there's guns that are entering into neighborhoods generationally, and people are killing each other in these neighborhoods, people of the same group are killing each other in the same group. Or, to your point, AJ, the situation on the reserves in a country like Canada, for people not to be able to turn on the tap and get clean water out of it without boiling it at first is disgusting to me. It's just unacceptable. You can say what you want. You can say what you want about the waste on the reserves or whatever, yada yada. Regardless, it's a human rights catastrophe. But for them to say that there isn't the money, there absolutely is. If they just enforce laws, if they just make sure that they didn't play favorites with the laws that they have. Like, look at this article I'm sharing with you here. And there's a part of it I want to share about this German report. A German report, not even a Canadian report. A German report finding substantial money laundering in BC's luxury car market. And the thing that's crazy about this one is that the people, I'll skip down to the part that I thought was most important. The thing that I thought was most interesting is that these people who laundered money on vehicles, got a PST tax rebate from the BC government.
Gee, I wonder who that might be. Which race?
So, I mean, and the difference was substantial. It's like there was about, this article doesn't show it. There's another version that did. But I think, previous to this laundering starting in the mid-2010s, there was maybe about 47 vehicles that qualified for the PSD rebate. But all of a sudden, since 2016, in 2016, excuse me, 3,674 vehicles automatically qualify this rebate. And since 2013, $85 million in BC alone and PC refunds have been paid for the government for the export of vehicles, with the source and destination of funds unknown. Because if you look into our corporations, our laws regarding those, it's very much legal in Canada for you to set up a corporation. You can be overseas. You get a lawyer here who, of course, can't disclose everything because of our laws, to sign off and say that they're operating officer. But there's no laws saying, okay, yes, you're the figurehead of the company, but who is the actual beneficiary of it? Who is the actual owner? Whose orders are you taking in terms of operating this corporation? So you can have
workers.
Sure. Well, sure. I'm sure some of them are, but a lot of them are people from overseas laundering money, trying to ship it over here so that they can then buy houses, buy real estate, buy cars, and then funnel through the same system to launder their money to get it over here. Same thing with casinos. Here's this another one, the one that I think I showed you guys last week, talking about look at this, revenue losses coming. Attorney General says revenue losses coming after crackdown on money laundering, meaning revenue losses from their casinos, and their casinos fund government programs, etc. The government is right in there with the corporations, with these people, but at the end of the day, the people that they really come after are us, our average Joe Canuck. For menial stuff, when if they went after the people, if they cut down on the tax loopholes that corporations get to enable them to pay nothing, if they cut down on the loopholes for things like this, or went back after people with full force and put all the effort they put into going after us, those big boys, and didn't let them cut deals and held them to account. I think we've talked about holding corporations to account on these calls before. Then, I mean, oh my gosh, imagine all the money we'd come up with for things like things that they say they don't have money for, but they definitely do because they piss it away, like making sure that our natives have clean running water and houses without asbestos and mold, and can teach the locals how to maintain those things so they don't have to keep going, mama government, mama government. But
it's a form of dependency. You want the natives to be better off.
That's the way they want it. Not just for the natives; they want it for all of us.
Sustaining them.
So, okay, to this point, let me just add this article.
Stop giving them money.
Sorry, go ahead, AJ.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, in my opinion, one of the problems with what's going on in the reserves, and the thing is that we're never going to just build industry in places that the people are not going to be able to facilitate that industry, right? So it's what's going to happen is we need to stop funding and creating these reserves and have this dual system, this dual legal system in Canada where there's laws for one set of people and laws for another set of people. That will only breed division and disunity between people living in the same geographical location. So it's not really a good idea.
Of the 5% in Canada of the natives, did you know that only 30% of them reside on the reserves? That's not enough people to keep a community going. And
well, even less than that. They say they do. Like I know one guy I work with, Tyson. Well, sorry, I'm not gonna. I haven't worked with him for a while. You're not going to track. This one guy I worked with, he just said he lived on the reserve so he could get a check, and then he would give half of the check to the chief. So then he would vote for him, right? So the chief would say that he was living on the reserve, so then he could still get the check, because when you're on the reserve, you get a check, right? That's right. And it's like we're paying them to go there, essentially, to go here, live in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, hey, if you want to live like your ancestors, then we shouldn't be helping you, to be honest. And and I'm not saying, hey, go live on your own. Yeah, let's integrate people back into our society or something like that, or or whatever, but that could create a lot of other issues. Like we just had the North, because I just saw an article the other day, like the crime rate in the North is much higher than that in the South of Canada.
Yeah, very much so.
It's like, yeah, okay, we want to integrate in a sense that it's going to be less costly by sustaining people out in the middle of nowhere. But then people are like, I don't know. Do we all want to look like Winnipeg here or something?
So here, if I could add, right, if I could add a few things, right? So one thing is that, there's, like, I talked about it in the last video, right? Because they post this stats about the hate crimes against Native Indians, which is bullshit. A lot of it's actually internal to the communities, right? A lot of spousal abuse happens in those communities, and they're trying to deal with it, right? But also there are people in there that are committing huge amounts of fraud, right? Like especially a lot of the chiefs. But also what's happening is there's a huge amount of disbursements that's supposed to go out to these people that's not going out to them, right? So maybe it's payouts to these chiefs, and this is why I've always argued, you want to help the natives? Stop fucking treating them like children. Stop making them into perpetual welfare cases, and stop being poverty professionals, which is the federal native department. You ever notice it just keeps getting bigger? Oh, we have a new study for this. This NGO is going to help us for this. Yada yada yada. They get funding through some other channels, through Tides. This is all bullshit. It's all a big fucking scam. It reminds me of the carpetbaggers when they came from the north into the south, because they knew they could take this opportunity after they've devastated the South, and they fucking mauled that whole area. But let me get to this point, because you did bring up a good point, and I'm going to supplement your point, Chris. Here it says U.S. This is just out on April 2nd, 2019 from the U.S. Yeah. U.S. identifies Canada as a major money laundering country and notes concern over its low persecution rate. Well, duh, right? We've known this for years. It's not a mystery, Chris, because we know this. And I want to talk about, when I get to that, I'm going to read a quote from a book.
How many times have you brought something up to me that you or your wife talks about, and I kind of say, how are they getting away with this? And it's because they're not being prosecuted. But you go ahead.
Right. So today on Rant's channel, what was the other guy's name? I apologize. I was watching. I did subscribe to him today. Unforgotten Canadian, I think. Right? Am I right about that, AJ?
Yeah. The Forgotten Canadians.
Forgotten Canadians. So there was one video that I want to talk about, which is kind of all related, right? But here it says, Canada once again a major money laundering country. In 2019, International Narcotics Control Strategy Report, INSER, published on Friday by the U.S. Department of State, identifies Canada once again as a major money laundering country, along with a host of risky countries for financial crime. A major money laundering country is one of those banks, financial institution engages in financial transactions involving significant amounts of proceeds from international narcotics trafficking, HSBC, for several years in a row. Canada has been identified as such. Canada has also been identified as a major precursor country, which means it's leading the country that produces precursors or essential chemicals used in the production of illicit narcotics. Low persecution rates, Bitcoin concern for organized crime. Okay, I don't care about that because that's, I'm still looking into that, right? But here, and they talk about it, and this is not new. Like, where the fuck do these young kids get a Ferrari, a Porsche, 5 houses, a condo? This is ridiculous. Of course the money is long, and they've been warned about this in the Globe and Mail, right? Now, let me just read just quickly. I know I want to get the other two hosts to talk, but this is from the book, another book, Multiculturalism and the Politics of Guilt by Paul Edward Gottfried. He says this, and multiculturalism is the reason why also we're having all this garbage thrown at us. A foundational practice for the therapeutic managerial state is the division of its citizens, and by now resident aliens, into victims and non-victims, or victimizers. These lines of demarcation are directly related to the questions of power, for unlike the notion of the United States as self-indulgent nation of victims, what is being argued is that the cult of victims is first and foremost about control. And I leave it with that. And then we can maybe, you guys can
So before we comment, I just want to share something to add on to your money laundering piece. That kind of adds a little bit more context to that. But yeah, let me just pop this on the screen here too. And this is a commentary piece, an analysis of this. This is actually just from me yesterday, actually. And some commentary about it. And basically it's saying that Canada has become a well-known target, even a magnet for money laundering, and no wonder. Now, this isn't new information. This isn't new that this stuff's been going on for all the reasons that you described, Fred. This is just that now that the people outside of Canada are making a big deal about it, it's forcing our news to uncover their eyes. It's forcing the local government, they haven't heard anything from the feds on this yet, that to not turn a blind eye, and at least to sort of, pay oh God, I can't remember the name. I'll say virtue signal that they're going to do something about it. This is the big problem. But here the guy says that according to our report out today from the CD Howe Institute, a Canadian think tank, 99% of those money launderers are just never caught. 99.9%. It's insane.
Yeah, but they go after regular citizens' credit cards and debit transactions in the banks.
Absolutely. They go after the low-hanging fruit, right? I'll give you an example. So a couple years ago, and before I go on to this is a very personal, not a very anecdotal example, but I took these steps for a reason. So a few years ago, I was seeing articles about CRA going after this person, and they started asking me some questions about what I was doing with my taxes and whatnot. And actually they started going to other family members and stuff to ask questions about me and whatnot, and it was all completely unjustified. I paid what I need to pay, but I saw some of the stuff going on in the news with them going after regular people rather than corporations, and I got a little worried. And this is around the time of that KPMG article that came out, where they were talking about how these people, these higher net worth people, are getting off by essentially getting representation. So I hired a tax attorney, and I heard nothing from these people. I heard like one little thing these people ever said, because putting that little. Even just hiring a tax attorney, not that we do anything, but putting that little thing in place, basically said, okay, well, this guy isn't at the bottom of the pile. He isn't low-hanging fruit, so we're not going to touch him with anything. So they closed the file. They said, oh, there's nothing here, sir. Yeah, you're in the clear. Very, very simple. Otherwise, they would be calling and dicking me around and dicking like they dick everybody around for nonsense. And that is really what it comes down to with these people. They're really just scum, as opposed to going after people like money launderers, and not just CRA, but law enforcement and whatnot, going after money launderers. They're going after you and me. So anyways, continuing along. As British Columbia begins to crack down and they're washing up dirty money, they're saying that a failure to change national laws means that the crime will just go elsewhere in the country. So you're seeing right now provinces and local municipalities are starting to go after money launderers, but it needs to be changed at a federal level, because the BC people can just go to Alberta, and then if they leave Alberta, they can just go to Manitoba or Saskatchewan, and so on and so forth. And they're already in Ontario, and they can definitely go to Quebec, but they don't want to speak French, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're saying it's highly unfair to law enforcement agencies that say that they've been ignoring it. The problem is they don't have the tools to address it, which means that they don't have enough officers to go after it. They don't have the technology to go after it. They don't have enough lawyers to go after it. They don't have enough judges to go after it. So that's what I mean by virtue signaling, as in they're saying all the right things, but the laws aren't changing. So they're saying all the right things, but in terms of actual tangible action, nothing is happening to change this. And here is one of the reasons they cite why. It's Canada's reliable rule of law system that attracts the money launderers. Dirty money can come in from anywhere in the world, including Canada, but much of it is funneled out of poor countries and autocratic regimes. But whether the source is drug crimes or political bribery and theft, the people who claim that that money don't want to keep it in those autocratic regimes, because a more powerful leader could just take it from them in those countries. So they send it here. Not in liberal democracies like Canada, where once you have the legal right of ownership, the law firmly protects that right. For that reason, laundered money in Canada is much more valuable than dirty money elsewhere. And that's why money launderers are pleased to pay well over asking for high-priced real estate where multi-million-dollar blocks of cash can be cleansed in a single deal. Or fancy cars, which we give them tax rebates on. Unlike perpetrators of other crimes, which can be caught in the act and arrested, money launderers have three big advantages. One is the invisibility of the crime. The other is the anonymity of the perpetrators of the crime, that corporate shield that I mentioned to you earlier. And the third is the legal difficulties of tracing the money, because you don't have a money laundering crime until you can prove that it's the proceeds from an underlying crime. For example, drug dealing, political corruption, kickbacks, that kind of thing. For all purposes of tracing the money back to its original illicit source can be impossible for Canadian law enforcement officials. So, and then you talk about not only has the money been filtered through a web of corporate entities before it comes to Canada, sometimes the cash passes through companies headquartered in notorious tax havens like St. Kitts and Nevis, like Panama, like some of the places you mentioned, where it's actually illegal to reveal the beneficial owner. The beneficial owner is a term I was trying to remember earlier, where yes, you may have a lawyer who's the officer of the corporation, the face, but the beneficial owner is the person who's actually getting the money, the person who's giving the orders to the lawyer or the representative in terms of what to do with the company. And so then they say that they're serious. They said there's things that lawmakers can do if they're serious, but you're not, because they and the corporate owners that fund them are likely very happy with the system exactly the way it is. Yes, T-Nova, it is absolutely old news. This is not new information at all. But it's the world we live in, and that's crazy stuff. And so, sorry, I've been rambling on here. So I think Fred and I have. AJ, do you have any comments on what we've been talking about?
No, not really. Not really. You know, Canada's corrupt, full of corrupt money launderers, right? Sending a lot of money out, shit, right? But yeah, I don't know. I don't got too much to add to that.
So should we be upset about this? Let me ask a different way. Should we be upset about this, or should we be trying to figure out how we can take advantage of this too? Like, I mean, if this is the game, or this is the song, maybe is it really wrong if it's the law, or should we, as like average Joe Blow Canadians, try and figure out how we can take advantage of these shenanigans too, to save a few bucks to, you know, put our kids in soccer or hockey or something, or pay for therapies, whatever. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, you could try exploiting the system for your own benefit, I guess, but I don't know. I wouldn't really recommend that. I don't. You know, I if it's legal, I guess, but you know, a lot of things that are legal are not necessarily moral and shit to do. And you know, like, I'm not competing in any business or anything like that, so I don't have to do anything like that. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm not gonna say it's wrong. I'm not gonna say it's right, but I'm not gonna do it. But you know, if it's for your kids, I guess, and I don't know, the system's gonna collapse anyways, and I guess you're just gonna help speed it up. You know, do your part, I suppose. Yeah, go ahead, I guess.
Fred, what do you think? Should we just continue to play by the rules, quote unquote, or play by these rules that these guys are using here?
So, like, you know, and I think we're losing people because they're all sort of aware of this. People read the papers, right? You know, I think what we need to understand is where we need to tackle, right? Like, we need to tackle immigration to a moratorium. I totally agree with what Faith's video the other day was, which was kind of like an attack on the platform with Bernier, you know, calling it out and stuff. But he's trying to call it out too. But is he sincere? But, you know, moratorium on immigration. I think we need to retract multiculturalism as an act or a policy of Canadian politics. I think it's Canadian politics only. There's no sense of having anything really multicultural. It's Canadian. It's the Canadian mosaic, period. And define that, right? I think it's easily be defined.
You're right. And I think there's, like, we're all trying to cover different topics, and like we should cover different topics. But I mean that, like, we're all trying to find something there should be kind of one thing that we can kind of red pill people on that will lead them to everything else, you know, and that you don't really have to convince people about, you know, the money laundering here or the this or that. Like, it's good to we should alert people of this stuff because it's important. But I mean, that, you know, like,
no, I think Chris is
on immigration. They're right. Like, they're on their path to uncovering everything else. You don't even have to, like, the seeds have been planted, right? If you can get them to understand the ill effects of mass immigration on the economy and the people, the culture, yada, yada, yada. If they can fully internalize that, then you don't have to really teach them almost anything else, right? They'll be on the right path and they'll vote for the right people when the time comes, right? Or do the right thing when the time comes, you know? But go ahead, Fredrick, what were you saying?
No, I think it's also we need yeah, you're right. We need to focus on like a few focal points that we can attack on, right? Well, to me, it's immigration first and foremost, right? And
free speech, I think.
And well, free speech, yes, right. I think that's. I think once we tackle immigration, there will be no other excuse.
Without free speech, we won't be able to tackle immigration because that will be hate speech, right?
Well, then we need to look at our charter because it's pretty fucking weak.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Free speech, right? So the charter involves free speech, right? Changing the charter to make free speech more better, but it's not even really changing the laws of the country, right? Because we're not being censored by necessarily the governments a lot of the times. It's by the social media companies, right? And how do you get the social media companies to stop doing that? Well, okay, you have competition, but one of the main reasons is that people don't support freedom of speech. And if you had a bunch of, like, if you had 60% of Twitter's base up in arms about Paul Joseph Watson being removed from Twitter and Alex Jones and all these other people, then they would not do it because the majority of people would be against it. But right now, the people that are mad are like 20% of the people, 30% of the people, maybe, right, are mad about the censorship that is going on. So there's not enough numbers to kind of prevent a lot of that stuff because we don't support freedom of speech. You know, we believe in hate speech and stuff, especially in Canada. You know, we've been taught that it exists. And just like that tweet I showed earlier about that woman, she's like, that lawyer, she's like, look at Jason Kenney trying to introduce these controversial freedom of speech laws in Alberta, right? Like, you know, that's how these people are framing them. I've seen people frame like radical free speech people. Like, they're like, oh, these radical free speech activists. It's like, oh, you're a radical free speech person. You believe people can say whatever they want as long as it's not advocating violence. You're a monster, you know? Like, these people are sick.
I think that's one. The other one is like ensuring that Multiculturalism Act is revisioned.
Exactly. But once they fully understand, like, love free speech, and they then they'll listen to you when you talk about immigration, right? Because then they'll be like, oh, okay, well, I value free speech. I want to listen to people's things as long as they're not hateful, etc. And then they'll actually listen to you, as opposed to being like, this is hate speech. What you're saying is hate speech. You know, like it. That's what I mean. That's one of the most important things. That people need to internalize the importance of it. But yeah, immigration is right there. That's what I mean. Immigration is obviously the most important issue. But my point is that you can't really get to the discussion about immigration without people first having free speech and first having people value it in order to have a conversation with you, because otherwise they'll just be like, yada, 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 you're a hateful bigot. I'm not listening because you said you don't want Mexicans in your country, right? As opposed to just listening to you and being like, hey, I can kind of understand.
I think that while I agree with you on the immigration piece, I think that it's become such a poisoned, hot button issue that you need to be a little bit more subversive in your argument. And the one thing that's universal is people's pocketbooks, is people's wallets. What is one of the economic arguments for higher immigration. Well, Canadians aren't replacing themselves fast enough. Who's going to take care of you when you're older? We don't have people to pay. We aren't able to pay people for the jobs that we have. That we aren't able to get people to take the low-standing jobs that we have now. All incorrect, of course. So this is one of the reasons why the financial stuff is such a hot button issue to me. Because, and as it is to most people, because the biggest bill you have, people don't think about this, but the biggest bill you have is your taxes. The biggest by far. Bigger than your house, your home, your apartment, your rent, your mortgage, your kids' college, whatever. There's no bigger bill that Canadians have than their taxes. And if they are making these excuses that they don't have the money to do certain things, they need to take money from the people who have it. And I'm not talking about redistribution of wealth. I'm talking about enforcing the law properly, or giving law enforcement the ability to extract funds from those people who are having it. So you talk about immigration and there's money coming in, for example. So take it. Take the money. Let's cut down on this money laundering nonsense. Cut down on some of this other these guys coming across the border with fancy briefcases full of clothes and things who are claiming to be asylum. Cut off the benefits they get. Put them to work right away. Like, you know, if they qualify, like, or even just shut it down completely. Frankly, let's maximize what we have.
Who to work
before we bring in more people. So forget that part. I wasn't thinking. I had a Trump senior moment. Where I was like, we need more.
Wait. Were these illegal to work? I was like, no.
Work making dishes.
No pathway to citizenship. No.
Well, citizenship is, of course, very different than a work permit or anything else. But
well, fuck that.
But anyways, yeah, don't give them rights. Don't give them that. And Kel, no,
well, you know, like we're not going to
Toronto. We will not dump them in Toronto. Okay, I live in a suburb, and every once in a while I come down to the city. And yeah, let's not turn Toronto into San Francisco.
Well, that's the thing too. We like. I know it's alluring to try to come up with like, okay, we just need to take their money and just enforce the law, right? And that would be great if we just enforce the law, but they haven't been enforcing the law for like decades, and I don't think they're going to do it anytime soon because there's no incentive to make too much money.
But they're also not slowing down the immigration taps anytime soon because people are equating immigration to a moral argument. And I'm saying, look, as Canadians, we need to take care of each other. We need to take care of each other first. Right. That doesn't make us terrible people. We're bringing, if you want to talk about humanity, let's say we needed more immigrants. Let's say for half a second, people, calm down, people in the chat. There's a bit of a delay. Your hot, pokers being shot at me will come in a second. But let's say we need more people. We need to make sure we give them an opportunity or an environment to be successful. And people are kind of being brought here and dumped into the streets and the shelters and whatnot that are being caught up in all this. That's not right either. They're being sold a bill of goods about what Canada is to them. And it's not fair to them. They're not being put in a position to succeed, which is only going to create more extremism because they're going to, instead of going to work and integrating, they're going to be going to the mosque or going to the local community and staying in the little ghetto and believing that the world is against them. And that's not good for us either.
Right. But that's the thing too. It's just, okay, nobody needs to be kicked out or whatever. It's just the money, the incentives just need to stop. We have lots of incentives for people to come across the border and to, go on the welfare state, etc., or we have businesses being subsidized. The government just needs to stop influencing everything altogether, and that will be better in general, right? But I'm trying to read the chat. I don't know what some people are saying. There's some people that are even Libertarian to me in my perspective, because I'm just like Libertarian because it's just like yes, nobody wants to be statist, guys, but the people who are just completely libertarian to the point where they're not going to do anything, they're never going to really make any type of change, right? That's the thing, right? It's like sometimes you need to use politics in the political sphere to create some type of change, to get in people's heads, to you can use a politician to get certain ideas out there to convince the population to eventually be more libertarian and less statist, and to want less of a state. You know what? I want no government too. I think the world could work a lot better in a free society, but you can't convince people like that. Try to convince people in steps. Say, okay, we'll privatize this. People will start to like it. Maybe they'll start to scale things back, right? Like this is how things work. And like, it's I don't want to keep it re-explaining the fucking hard fall and the soft fall, and why it's preferable to scale things back as opposed to just letting everything crumble. Because I think people aren't really understanding what the world would probably look like if everything were to crumble, right? Like it's not going to be pretty, right? And I hope you're prepared is what I'm saying. Like I hope you're very prepared, and you got all your bells and whistles and all this other stuff covered, because if the whole system were to collapse, then yeah, there's going to be a lot of people looking for resources and money, because they are used to being taken care of by the state, and they're not going to be able to take care of themselves, and they're going to come looking for you and to get your shit. So it's preferable to get as many people into this type of small government mindset, even if it's not perfect, because it's really hard to get people, like even everybody in this chat. I'm the only person that would consider myself more of like or I say like I believe in more of a free society where there's almost no government or very little, right? But we can at least agree on like that life is full of compromises, and sometimes you got to make compromises to get almost all of what you want. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be better than what we had before, right? And another thing libertarians really need to understand is that the aspect, it doesn't have to be all white or anything like this, but the majority of libertarians are white males. So if you want a libertarian society and a free society, you kind of have to have a more homogenous European society. It doesn't have to be completely homogenous, but it's got to be fairly homogenous. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case forever, because it's society history doesn't constantly repeat itself. Possibly in the next 10-20 years, Indians from India will be super capitalistic, and Chinese will be all like capitalist or something, all libertarians. I don't fucking know. I can't tell the future. Maybe that will be the case, but currently right now, no. So I know a lot of them kind of avoid the whole racial discussion, and they're like, oh, but it's like, man, we need to have a majority white population or European population in order to have a libertarian free society. So I see that, if you guys want this, if you guys want a free society, then you're going to have to talk about immigration, and possibly even using the state to lower immigration right now in order to create a feasible future for you to have a free society in the future. But back in the day, we didn't know we were all going to be replaced. Okay. We thought, hey, we got 100 years. We can wait a couple 100 years, let the system piddle itself out. Oh, well, but now it's different. We are being replaced by different people who, when the system collapses, will not recreate the system in a smaller government free market state type thing. So maybe they will, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not going to bet my shit on it, man. Like, I'm not a gambling man. I don't want to take that gamble. So, these things need to be talked about too. Right. And,
right.
And that's like I was saying, like, it's I don't want to live in some ethno state or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's people, there's outliers in every community that we need to appeal to as well, and that can be our friends and allies for trying to create a society that we want, because we all want a society that's peaceful, right? That's what everybody really wants. Doesn't matter what race, religion, culture. We don't want to be attacked. We don't want to be hurt. We don't want our family members hurt. We want to live in peace. This is what we want. You're a chicken shit, Anthony Quantrill. What the fuck are you talking about? See, this like basic libertarian fucking idiots. You're a chicken shit. You just don't want everything to crumble and all your family members to die and people to starve to death. You chicken shit. It's like, fuck, these people are fucking retarded, man. But I'm like,
happy note.
trying to work. I'm trying to make compromises with people to try to get the state smaller. And like, you're not completely. You're not saying just let it all crumble. You're a cuck. You're like, you know, that it's. I can't reason with fucking people that are low IQ individuals that can't fucking, you know, use their brain to make a logical fucking decision. You know, you got to think of strategically. You can't just rush ahead like a retard, like just run into a fucking wall and hope it falls down, right? You know, you got to think about it. You got maybe we'll take it down here, we'll crack it here, right? It's like, oh, let's try to get a free society. So the first thing we'll do is get rid of the border. Yeah, that's the first thing we'll do, but we'll keep the welfare state and all this other crap in line, and this will be fucking smart. It's like, no. It's like, no, we'll not do that. That's fucking stupid. No, I'm not gonna have a discussion with you either, man. Just rando. I had random people on here, but it's like, no. You call me a pussy for or some shit for what? Because I'm not a fucking retard? Like a chicken shit? For what? Man, I don't know, man. Get off my fucking channel if you're gonna be an idiot.
I think you're giving this guy a little bit too much attention. It
just makes
that's
it just
what the rent is for.
frustrates me. This like this fucking like retardedness, right? It's like, man, what do you mean? Oh, you want to make compromises and shit. Oh, you're a chicken shit. It's the monarchy chicken, AJ. The monarchy? Who's proposing a monarchy? I don't know, man. Some people they like to hear what they want to hear, and you know, I get that a lot on comments in my videos where I'll say one thing completely different, and then people will respond and say they'll be like they'll criticize me, and I'm like, I didn't even say anything remotely about what you're criticizing. I'm like, did you even see? Did you hear what the fuck I said? But like, I don't fucking know. But what were you saying, Chris? There.
Yeah. I was just saying, don't even pay any attention to this guy. There's a video we got sent to us by Jesus Gonzalez, one of our regulars. Is it Jesus or Jesus? I don't know. Jesus, you can correct me in the chat. So he's wondering if we could play the video.
I like to call him Jesus.
Anyways, I want to play this video.
It's Eric Butler. It's one of our... our usual.
What the video's about, Fred, or?
It's just Eric Butler and what he do. Yeah, can you guys hear me? Okay. What the hell?
Yeah, I can hear you. Who's Eric Butler?
Okay.
Who is Eric Butler?
Eric Butler is one of our subs, and he comes sometimes here, and I just watched it. It's pretty tame. It's just him pretending what he would do as president.
Okay, I will share it, and let me see if you can see my screen here. There you go. And let's hear what Mr. Butler has to say. 1 second.
My name is Eric Butler. I'm announcing my bid for presidency in 2020. Here's what I'll do. First, excuse me, I have a testosterone tab on my tongue. Hold on. Okay. The first thing that I will do is I will pull our ass out of the Middle East. The Middle East, I don't care about them. You don't care about them. I should. Anybody cares.
Israel cares about them.
They can't take care of the goddamn self. You need to. Second thing I will do, and this will all be in the same day. Remember this, all in the same day. I will bomb the fuck out of yeah, I will bomb the shit out of that fucking goddamn. We will claim Mexico as a state of the U.S. I will plant a fucking flag and say this is U.S. now, you silly son of bitches. So,
well, better them than us.
In 2020, that's Eric Butler.
That's it. You can cut it off there.
It's been done for a while. Well, thank you for sharing that, folks. That was completely worthwhile. Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
I'm trying to pull up my screen here, but I can't really do it right now. I don't know why it's lagging. So,
But actually, since we're talking about the U.S., so
lagging.
Canada, let's talk about Canada, U.S.'s other neighbor. And there's something I meant to share with you guys as well. So, because of climate change, or so on, now we have the Northwest Passage and Northwest shipping routes, or Arctic shipping routes, opening up, and also Arctic resources opening up. So, Canada, you look at a map, Canada's kind of there. That's kind of our thing. But essentially, what this article is talking about is that we're getting the cold shoulder, no pun intended, when it comes to these negotiations happening between Russia, the US, and China about essentially the Arctic and passages, making sure that ships can make it through, getting resources. These guys are kind of working around us, and the US is working with Russia and China, which has no claim in that region unless they've bought it from us under Trudeau and we didn't get the word. So I just thought this was interesting as well, that these guys and are basically negotiating around us for our resources. But why wouldn't they talk to us? We don't have bombs, we don't have military, we don't have even a presence up there, whereas the Russians have seriously beefed up their Arctic presence over the last decade.
Yeah, but we got Trudeau, man. We got Trudeau, like he's the man's man, right?
We do have sunny ways. Like here, you can see here, there is already long-standing ease over Russia's military buildup in the region that has seen the construction of 14 new airfields, 16 deep water ports, and the addition of 4 Arctic combat teams and more than 40 icebreakers. In Canada, there was a lot of wringing of hands over purchasing jets and helicopters from back when Cringe was first elected in '93. I remember the Sea King helicopters, which we still have because he canceled the helicopter order. Then Trudeau comes in and he cancels the F-35. So we said to replace the CF-18. So we have this creaky military that isn't safe for our soldiers or for us. And here you can actually see a map that I'm sharing here. Look at the buildup here in Russia. Look what they're doing up here. This is what you do when you're claiming territory. And then you have an airfield in Greenland, an airfield in the US, and kind of nothing over here. So nothing over here. The over here being Canada. So I'm like,
on that note,
nothing militarily.
What are your thoughts on? I know AJ did a video today of what's the guy's name? The general today, the Navy general.
We talked about that first.
Oh, you did? Okay, never mind.
We talked about that first on the stream. Okay. I didn't have an opinion as much on it because I don't know as much about it. But essentially, the conclusion was we're not surprised. Anything's possible. It could be. It's so crazy either way. It could be either way. So, but yeah, that's just kind of a symptom of the world we're in and how filthy the Liberals are in terms of kind of throwing things under the rug for their convenience. And basically trying to bankrupt this guy with legal fees. But, yep. So we left it. So, anyways, so we'll see what my prediction with this whole situation is that a Liberal government will do nothing because they're usually the ones who terminate military funding, not increase it. And we're going to miss an opportunity. We're going to miss an opportunity in the north, or we may have to cede and go to the north for some support. Yeah, in the north. Yes, the wall.
In the north.
Right? The wall is there's nobody on the wall. There's nobody.
If Scheer wins,
King of the North.
Wins, do we think that he can take?
No.
I think the most expedient thing for Canada to do is to probably have. I mean, and this is a major shame on us because we're ceding sovereignty this way. But the U.S. is our closest ally, theoretically. So either them or the Brits, I suppose. But to team up and have them and work with them to shore up our defenses
I don't know what
northern
Trudeau's
border.
been
has
soft
fucked
lately.
up relations with literally every country, and especially with America, and that's like,
Yeah,
that's why it's like, man, he's such a bad negotiator with everybody that he's put us in this situation where now Pompeo is like, we're gonna lay claim to the Arctic and blah 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 and fuck you.
Yeah.
And what is Trudeau doing now? He's going to America trying to get their help with China because of how China's fucking us over. So they're weak.
So
Trudeau is weak. He shows weakness, and everybody sees that. So they always give him the shitty end of the stick because they're like, well, if I can do whatever the fuck I want with this guy, I'm Duterte, the Filipino president. I can boss this guy around. It doesn't even matter if he's in the G7 countries, like in one of the G7 countries. Like, Canada is a small country, but we do have a lot of like power for our size potentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we are in the G7, we are in some of these high ranking, we could have, like, for the amount of people we have for this, like, we could have a huge role in a lot of different stuff that goes on in the world or whatever, or over the resources, or have negotiations with Trump right now, but in Europe. But yeah, Trudeau is just completely messing it up, and the problem is like, we messed up our relations with India as well. So then, China sees this and sees, okay, well, now we can put pressure on them even more. America sees this. Saudi Arabia sees this. This is what they're doing to us all, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And here you go in this article again. This is China. I mean, it's at the table because their military strength is growing, and they have nuclear weapons, etc. So they're saying a Pentagon report warned that China might use its own growing fleet of icebreakers and polar research stations as a pretext for Arctic military adventures, potentially deploying nuclear-armed submarines. Hey, do we ever get the submarines that we got secondhand from Australia and Britain? Do we get those?
They broke.
Do they actually work?
No, they broke.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
everything military the way. Yeah.
So I'm gonna take the platform and give it back to AJ, but I just want to show this is kind of a funny article.
Sure.
Look at all these Tim Hortons workers who are in Canada protesting to Canadians that we need to take the garbage back.
Right. Well, that's the thing. That's another thing with multiculturalism, right? And I've said this before in a lot of our videos. It's like, we bring in a bunch of people from different cultures, right, and who still have relations with the country they leave. And when we do national disputes with them, are we going to expect them to have our back or whatnot? No, they're gonna be like, no. Well, I
better spit out your coffee.
And you know what? That whole thing with the trash, it's like, it was between two fucking companies, and a lot of these countries, they go and they purposely buy that trash on purpose and strip it of all the valuables, like the metal, because there was electronics in the garbage that was sent there. They're like, oh, it was all just trash from this and that, but there was a lot of electronics in there as well that they clearly mined and got value of. Now they're like, oh, well, we don't want to deal with it. Oh, you're breaking the international law of sending garbage to a third world nation, where that's not the case. But it's like they're just gonna say that and whatever, and it's gonna look like that because people are gonna be like, well, obviously Western countries, would do this, right? But it's a lot of these countries buy this shit voluntarily, and then they just throw it in the fucking water afterwards, in the ocean. So I guess we do have a role to play in that, maybe to some extent, but just a whole big fucking mess, right?
Well, we could have negotiated. Like if we had someone of testicular fortitude to actually,
it was a private corp.
Well, I know it was a private corp, right? But
yeah,
you need
responding to classless. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
The thing is, you in this kind of case, you need to respond in a strong format, right? I mean, if this was something said to Trump, he would like rifle back in a Twitter triad of like a billion tweets. But there's nothing, not a peep of like. And then what happens? You get these people protesting in Canada who are probably here on a TFW program, cleaning houses or working at Tim Hortons. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. There's just such a lack of respect for Canadians and where they are. Like you come here and it's like, yeah, you're a second-class citizen to me. Well, wait a sec. You know, you're more than welcome to leave. I mean, you guys live on an island where if I went, you guys would be blown off the face of the earth, right? So, you know, and I think Trudeau, whoever, I don't care, open up the channels, give the guy a call and say, listen, man, you know, I know this might have been a mistake, but it was a private company. Let's deal with this instead of like name calling. If you want to start name calling and threatening, well, you can take it to that level too, but I guarantee you're not going to come out of this on like, you know, and that's it.
Trudeau's never going to do anything
what is Canada going to do? Actually, here's what Canada could do. If they really want to play tough. Because we can't do anything militarily. We just had that conversation. That would sending a ship somewhere, a Canadian ship or a plane somewhere, would kill more Canadians than any Filipino, because it would crash or it would fall out of the air. 20 hours of maintenance for 4 hours of flight time for a sea king. But what we can do is the Philippines' primary revenue comes from expats who send money back home. So we can cut that off. Yeah. We can cut that off for the ones that are here and say, nope, you're not getting $1 from us until we have an adult conversation. And we're going to hold all funds being sent to the Philippines.
Or you could just say, oh, your TFW has terminated early. Thank you for your help, and have a nice trip back home.
Yep. We're sending back. Not only we're sending back money, we're sending back
the politicians are working in the interest of the people, which they obviously
are.
I
know.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Well, that was the whole point. That's what we started off with, right?
Right. You know, it's like you need a small government. You need a small government in order to prevent a lot of this stuff, because it's just like you just can't trust people to not give their buddies or fuck relations up with other countries. It should just be left to individual companies to decide whether to do a deal with somebody else or not. We shouldn't need to sign all these trade deals, these massive free trade deals that end up just sending our jobs overseas. Like that's what NAFTA did. That's what probably the CPTPP, whatever deal he signed with Brunei and China and all these other countries, right? These South Asian countries, right? So
he gave like what was it? We took in trade from India like 250 something million, and he gave India like 400 or 600 million back in trade deals. Like
yeah. Well, he left. He was there. I remember that they were like, we did just $1 billion in deals,
10,000 jobs, guys.
But no. What happened was like 750,000 jobs were created there, and like 250,000 here, or 750,000 or 150 million was spent there, and like 250 million was spent here, or something like that, right? It was just extremely disproportional, right? So, like remember that stream I did a while ago, and I was talking about the World Bank statistics and the rate of return, going into the numbers. It's because there's a much higher rate of return in these third world countries to go and educate these people or this and that. They get more money back if they do that, as opposed to investing in our people, our infrastructure, Canadians, right? In their education, right? It's just better for them to go in other places, right? And then our own foreign aid is going to educate these people, which is just ridiculous. So stop giving foreign aid.
And that's I just wanted to put a kind of a juxtaposition of what goes on in other countries and what happens in ours. And it seems to be a lot. Like when Meng got arrested from Hubei, there were a bunch of Chinese protesting against Canadians and they have their lives. They work here, right? And now we have the Filipinos. And then when there was when the Saudi thing went south, there was the Saudis and look what you guys are doing, and we're gonna pull all our students out of your schools. And our own wheat board out west. You know, man, you're out west. You're from out that part of the country, AJ. And they were coming out and saying, "Don't worry, Canadians, you guys are going to be fine, even though we own your wheat board," which is weird, right? Yeah, that kind of stuff. Like when you have like these little fiefdoms of these people, now you're like, we have like the more and more Sikhs and other cultures we get into our armies, which we're asking for these people to come into. We're looking outwards. What do you think? Are these, when you're in a fight with a country of their home country, where do you think their loyalties are going to lie? Right? What if they have family over there? Like did these people ever think about that? Like, what if a third of their family's still back home when we get into a little tussle, right? And you got to send troops over there. Like, are these people going to defect and turn on us?
Just Richard Tremblay says Jews killed Jesus Christ. Just wanted to let everybody know that, because he's been repeating it in the chat for like a long time now. But that's not wrong.
Apparently,
I'm just saying that. I'm not saying anything against Jewish people. I'm just saying that the Christians perpetrated the Crusades. Nobody's freaking out about that. Nobody's getting angry.
Yeah, actually, it's news to me. I mean, I didn't know that until.
What?
I can't even make a joke about it. It's so stupid. Anyways, yes, we know. Thank you.
I just had to throw it because I'm like, maybe, you'll just so you know, man. I know the media is anti-white. I agree with you, Richard. And Jewish people did kill Jesus, or I guess they say like the Romans, but I guess on behalf of the Jews. I don't know. I don't know enough about the Bible, honestly, to completely confirm that, but I'm pretty sure they did. Man, but then again, you're more of an expert than I am, so I'm not trying.
I'm not even gonna.
Well, see, isn't that funny though? Isn't that funny though? How, like, if that's true, it's true, right? If white people enslaved black people, you know, in America, that's true.
And other places, it's true.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Jews killed Jesus. It's not terrible to say, is it?
I
Jewish person.
I just think that
or maybe the way I'm phrasing.
There's more to the story than that, and I'm not going to go into all the nuances of it now. So let's move on.
Right. Okay, we're right. Exactly. Well, maybe we'll save that.
I think if you're focused on that, on those,
because I don't know,
you're missing. No, that's fair. That's you're right, AJ. That's fair.
But I'm just saying, I don't think you should focus. I'm not saying you should focus on it.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that it's one of those things that we're just kind of not allowed to say in a way. It seems like it's not allowed to say, but it's if you think about other things that you do say that are very blatant or talking, nobody bats an eye. But then when you say that, it's like, oh, I don't want to offend people, you know. But but then again, it is. I don't want to say that Jewish people, you should think they're responsible for killing your holy person, and you should be mad at them for that. You shouldn't be. Obviously, that's not what I'm trying to say. And you know, a lot of Jewish people I know are great people, or are good people, and I'm not trying to push them like hate Jewish people. I'm just, you know, I just kind of addressed that, and I was thinking like, it's just one of those things that seems like it's true, but you just can't really say it. Can't really talk about it per se.
Yeah. Well, look, anything that you say that it could be interpreted as even slightly negative to a Jew, you get tarred with this anti-Semitic brush. If somebody sneezed and didn't cover their nose, and snot came out of their nose and got in your arm, and you said, "Hey, dude, what are you doing? Like, cover your mouth or something." And then all of a sudden, a yarmulke pops on the guy's head and says, "Hey, that's anti-Semitic. You can't criticize me for this. Listen, that's the chosen snot. Okay, I'm the chosen people. That's the chosen snot. You should be happy about that." So, anyways, but no, there's a lot of stuff that gets swept under the rug because people are afraid to talk about it. It's been tarred with a brush, which frankly should make us want to look at it and talk about it even more and dig in, frankly, to see if there's any truth to it. Sometimes there will be, sometimes there won't be. That applies to the Jews. That applies to a number of things in life. Whatever I think whatever they tell us not to look into and just want to brush under the rug, we need
Well-
to dig into a little bit more and investigate.
Well, that's why free speech is so important, like
Yeah.
starts that discussion because I'm not an expert on the Bible at all. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
pretend to be anything like that. So if I say wrong things, that's good. Because then
Yeah,
someone
that's okay.
can correct me and say, no, actually this is what happened and blah 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 blah, right? So that's why free
Mhm,
speech is so important. We need to allow stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
some people ban Richard for saying that shit. Where like for me, it's like only ban people if they're being like really annoying, maybe. Just because I don't like annoying people. You're being like just like a brat. But for that,
Let's just ignore that for a while
or,
because
or,
Yeah,
if you're saying threats or if you're saying stuff that could get my channel banned or whatever, if you're saying stuff that could get me banned and whatever, don't do that.
don't do that because
Don't say stuff that can be banned. You can say stuff that's edgy and stuff, but you don't say like violent shit. Don't say like we need to
yeah.
violent stuff and stuff because I don't support that. I don't
don't either.
condemn that
Neither
shit.
does Chris either.
Nope.
Nobody.
Disavow, disavow, disavow.
And that's the thing. Most rational people don't, and that's one thing that they use to try to smear us and tar us. Right? Is that they use? And I'm not trying to police anybody's voices or anything, but it's very easy for the left to make up accounts and then go into our chats and then start to say shit to try to make us look bad and then say, oh, see, look at all the hateful things that they're saying, blah blah blah, right? So I don't promote anything like that, but I want people to talk about stuff that could be deemed as anti-Semitic, right? If you talk about Israel in just any means whatsoever, you're immediately
I think everybody is aware, right? Everybody is very sensitive to that particular topic because there is quite a bit of evidence to suggest that a group, not all, right? Obviously, that's not the case, but there's a significant group that may be controlling things and whatnot. But we can't get to the point where like Owen Benjamin just goes on and on and on about it. It's actually vomit-inducing at that point because you're not getting anywhere with suggesting what our remedies should be, right? Like what should we move to do to make things better? Because just focusing on that, and that's just bullshit. Because to me, you're allowed to dislike people, but when you continually or hate people and hate, you have to keep in your heart constantly. It has to be fed. But if you dislike someone, you forget about them. And my mother used to say, "I don't like him. I don't dislike him. Whatever. Let him be and let me be." So enough of that talk about
Well, I'll direct it. We'll talk about whatever. We don't need to.
No, I understand, but like,
about it. But it's a good subject. I think it's still an important subject to talk about because, like, look at Scheer just the other day. He said that I want to move the embassy of Canada to Israel too, and he's just a huge Israel cuck, man, and it's so frustrating. And you see all these laws against freedom of speech in America being instituted in California or Florida. There was this DeSantis guy that passed this law where he's like, if you question like anything in schools about Israel, you could be charged, like all this crazy shit. You're like, holy crap. Like clearly these people have a huge influence on America and their direction of where their country is going, their laws. Like how the fuck does this little tiny country have so much control over? Like there's no other country, there's no other laws where it'd be like, oh, you can't criticize Iran, you can't criticize Palestine because we'll make a whole law in all these states. And you're like, that is a huge problem in the conservative sphere that it's like this is their you can be anti-Muslim, you can be this, you can be kind of nationalistic, but you got to be pro-Israel and you got to love Israel. And you got to love everything about it, and you can't talk about it because you're an anti-Semite. And then they just come out and they sound like complete hypocrites because they're calling everybody.
What about Alan Dershowitz? What about Alan Dershowitz's speech the other day where he says that it's absolutely necessary for Jewish Americans to feel absolutely proud of what they've done and to promote themselves. So, like there's jingoism everywhere.
What about Alan Dershowitz being implicated into the Jeffrey Epstein sex ring?
Well, of course. I mean,
That happened this week too.
Yep.
Yeah, truly a creep as well. Okay, guys, how much more time do you want to?
Yeah,
to go today?
we'll probably end this shortly. Probably the next 5 or so minutes. I think.
Okay.
Getting kind of late. Unless you guys want it. Go ahead.
Can I suggest maybe something that will either creep us out or perhaps
palate cleanser?
Give us a bit of a lap on, a bit of a palate cleanser on the way out.
Up to you. It's AJ's channel, right?
I was gonna say also, in the chat, Gray J was talking about using other platforms. He said, if you don't like being banned and censored, stop using platforms who do that. Use ones that you cannot be censored and you can host your own content on. So I responded, I'm like, use both, right? We need to use both, right? And because a lot of the people right now watching me probably wouldn't see me or wouldn't be subscribed if I was just on BitChute, which I am on BitChute, which I suggest we need to use all this other alt tech platform. I'm on Gab. I have like almost 500 followers on Gab. So go on Gab, follow me on Gab. I'm on Minds. I have all the links in the description below. I'm on BitChute. I'm on IDW. Everything. I'm on all these different things in case that YouTube does get removed. But it is still, we still need to stay on these platforms as long as you possibly can, while also going to other platforms, because it is still a good way to reach people.
Not just that, it's you remain because if you cower back into the darkness, then what strength can we really talk about? We need to remain here, and if they throw us off, that's just another. It just shows you.
I wouldn't say it's cower, right? It's like some people are just like, hey, I don't want to support the Twitter system anymore.
I get it.
I understand that. I completely get the rationale, as in like, I don't want to, like, it's just like any business, right? Like, I don't like Burger King because they have a SJW policy, so I'm not gonna buy Burger King shit, right, to support their company, which makes perfect sense. But it's different. It's different when it's social media, because it's like a different beast altogether, because that social media isn't like Burger King where you just consume it and eat it and shit it out later. Social media influences the public and their opinions and what they think. So you do kind of need to try to stay on it, try to use it as much as you can. And that doesn't mean if you are removed from it, all is lost and you can't do anything now. But it is still a really good tool. But don't lose hope, encourage, or anything if you do get banned. Because I'm completely banned from Twitter, right? But I still have a YouTube and I still have some other things. And I still have my body in the real life too. So worst comes to worst, and I still talk to people in my day-to-day life too. That makes a difference. Don't underestimate you talking to individuals and changing one person's mind, because that one person could be somebody that could change a million minds. That could be somebody that was pushed by you, who you changed that one person's mind, and now they're going to be somebody great, a great leader in the future, or you could be that person, so don't be discouraged because of all this censorship that is going on. We can still do something about it, even though that happens, and use other platforms. But that's all I pretty much had to say about that, guys.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to say something, Fredrick, or you wanted to finish it off with something. I forget.
No, I'm going to tap out, but I want to give everyone in the chat an opportunity to say, if you want, you can come to my channel. I got other videos too.
Oh, right.
I will be so the TCR for Saturday will be hosted by Chris on his channel, and AJ is going to be there too. If you guys can try to get someone on. Unfortunately, I'm working 7 days this week. I'll be working on Saturday through tonight as well, having the midnight shift on Sunday. So I'll be a little bit too tired, and I want to spend some time before I go to work with the kiddies. So back to you, Chris, if you want to tell people where, like your channel, and then have AJ. just organize with him, right?
Yeah. So, AJ, if you don't mind, we can put a link to my channel in the description so people can follow, and I will schedule an event. We can work out the time as to when that'll be. To start probably around the same time, if this works for you, on Saturday at 9:30 Eastern, I think 8:30 Central. If that works for you, then we can just keep the time the same and have our chat then. And if you have anybody you want to bring on, let you know. We can maybe open up to a bit of a call-in as well. So if there's people who want to join us, depending on the topics, we can go from there. So
I can try to get some people on right now, or I would probably get a couple different people. But let me go find your channel so I can throw it in the description here, so you guys can go sub to Chris's channel. One sec here. Chris, where are you there? Oh, there you are.
Gunderson. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally my real name. So yeah.
I figured.
Yeah. No problem. Yes, I'm very Swedish. One little palate cleanser. You just talked about hope, AJ. I believe in hope too. And one of the things I'm being very entertained by is this Democratic campaign going on in the U.S. with, I think, about 22 people. Soon the New York Mayor, Bill de Blasio, is actually going to announce his running for president, I think this week or next. But Joe Biden was the main guy who came in this week. And Joe is a guy who has a big reputation for making a lot of mistakes and being kind of creepy. If you search Google for Joe Biden website, you get this first hit. Joe Biden for president. Looks very official. Go to the website, Biden 2020. But it's actually a parody website with photo after photo, GIF after GIF of this guy being a massive creep to people. Let me share my screen here. Looking very official, of course. But then if you look at the pictures, these are real photos, real videos of Biden being Biden. So anyways, I just thought that was super funny that this is, and also quotes like referring to Obama, I promise you this president has a big stick. Lots of quotes like that, lots of gaffes from Biden. So this is the first thing you get when you search for Joe Biden on the internet. It's actually pretty funny. And actually, his actual campaign website is nowhere to be seen on the front page of Google. So, and it's been like,
I heard about this, the parody account.
Super funny. Yeah, even an old Daily Show thing of them mocking him too, and some other ones too.
This is why they want to censor social media, right? Because shit like this, right? People, they're gonna go search for him, and the first thing they're gonna see is all these creepy shit. Whereas, it's hard to deny the creepiness behind that. You can be like, you can kind of brush it off as much as you want, but after a while, some people are gonna be like, I don't know. I just kind of associate him and creepiness, but I think I'll probably.
And he's the front runner, so there you go.
Right. Well, Trump's going to win
again. But Trump's going to win again. Now, Trump's hands are hardly clean, but Biden, I frankly, I don't know. It's like half of one, six of one, and a half dozen of the other with those two. So it's super creepy.
Unless it's completely rigged, like Trump can still fuck up a lot right now, and the Democrats are so split apart right now that it seems like he'll just win regardless, right? But I think that's about it, guys. We're gonna probably end the stream, but thank you all for joining me. Had a good time. Thank you all for the super chats. I really appreciate that. And join us on Saturday on Chris's channel. I put a link in the description in the chat, and also put it in the link below after the video is done. So take it easy, guys, and I hope you all have a great night. See ya.
Okay, take care. Bye.